Meeting to order. Hello, I'm echoing. Hello, 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 hello. He was here. I don't know. All right, are we recording? We're good? Good deal. Call our meeting to order. Commissioner Pickens, would you do our invocation? And Commissioner Rawls, would you do our Pledge of Allegiance? All stand if you're able.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this glorious day and all the wonders in it, Father God. We just thank you for this opportunity to gather as a commission and staff and concerned citizens. Father God, just let us discuss the issues concerning Putnam County and make good decisions for our future. In Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sam, would you see Mr. Adamsak's in his office?
He was out in the corner over here outside pacing on a phone call.
Okay, he might be tied up. Christine, I'm still real loud. Okay, you got me? All right, the next order on the agenda is any public comment on agenda items. Do we see anybody in the public that wants to speak on agenda items? All right, seeing, well, we can go, no, we'll wait then.
Mr. Chairman, while you're waiting, our county attorney is going to be out the first part of this meeting. He is on a call with a judge on the federal case he's dealing with.
Okay. And we have a 2:15 call that I'm going to make to put a gentleman on the phone. I'm looking to see, how much time, Mr. Siafi, do you need for your flood? Come on up then. We're going to go to our BOCC workshop and go to item A. Mr. Peckham and Mr. Siafi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So the reason that we're here is that
Got to speak into the microphone.
DEM emailed us, and they're actually requiring us to make some changes to our ordinance. They involve elevating the mobile homes 1 foot higher than we currently do. And the other is a size limitation on accessory structures that can be flood vented. So if they do accessory structures larger than 600 square feet, then they would have to be elevated to the flood elevation.
Under 600, you could still side vent them?
Yes, yes, sir. And what was that? Explain that. What was that? So for structures in the flood hazard area, if they're for storage or for, if they're accessory structures, they can be flood vented in accordance with the building code, but FEMA wants these structures to be of low value, so they put a size limit on it. 600 square feet, you can do the flood venting as we always have, but if they're larger than 600 square feet, they want them elevated to the flood elevation.
Okay, I understand that. So that's something you do to the building, so.
Yeah, the flood vents.
That's what it is, okay.
What they do is equalize the pressure on the
Okay.
building in the case of a flood.
Okay.
But you're looking at 3 feet above flood zone, right? Is that what we're talking about?
So in the A zones, it's 3 feet above the highest adjacent grade to the structure, correct? Yeah.
And any other area, what would you talk about?
Yeah, in the other areas, in the AE zones, there's actually a published elevation that you would have to go to. And you had to be 1 foot above that published elevation, which they call the BFE. And the 1 foot above is the required elevation or the design flood elevation.
Okay.
Need a maximum berth.
No, go right ahead.
Well, I realize, we got my mic hot too. While I realize we don't really have a lot of choice here if we want to stay in the flood program, I really wish we had another option on garages, because now someone has to build a ramp to get in and out of their garage instead of being able to just drive in and out. So I wish we didn't have to do it, but I don't see a choice in staying in the flood program that we're in. So, you know, I'll have to go along with it, but I sure wish we could somehow exclude just a small 2-car garage from being, being in the the elevation.
Right, now, it does not affect attached garages, these are accessory buildings, because FEMA wants these structures to be a minimum
Got
investment.
it. I'm talking about a detached or
Yeah.
two-car garage or something you've got right now. You could build it on the ground is what you can do, and then flood vent it.
Right,
But under this new deal, you're gonna have to put it up in the air 3 foot above adjacent. I thought it was 4 foot. Didn't we go to
No.
4 foot on houses?
no, it's 3 feet.
3
It's
foot
3
above
feet.
adjacent.
So
We
in
used
our,
to be
in our
2 and we
ordinance,
went to 3 because we
Right.
just added a foot not long ago.
Right.
Okay, so we went to 3. So now you'd have to build a 3 foot tall ramp to get in and out of your garage.
correct, yep, if the garage is large enough, yeah.
And we don't have any option other than not stay in the flood program.
That'll affect everybody in the county,
Right,
so
that's
it's not
not-
really a good option, yeah.
Mr. Rawls?
It would allow them to build, they could build a large two-car garage under 600 square feet and not have to elevate it
So
according.
if it's under 600
Yeah.
square feet, it can be flood vented rather than elevated. It's ones that are larger than 600 square feet.
Man caves are going to be affected.
Yeah,
Well, man
she
caves, yeah, they don't really count. It's either for storage or
Yeah.
parking, so.
Yeah.
Man cave actually is habitable space if you're gonna be in there, living and partying and stuff.
Don't tell my wife that.
But you're only talking about in a zone, right? The other zones, you're not talking about 3 feet.
It's A and AE
A and
zones.
AE, right.
Yeah,
So when you're building in a flood zone, then you need to build it up. But if you're not in the flood zone, you don't, it doesn't apply.
yeah, if you're in the areas that aren't considered flood hazard, like flood zone X and X 500, which we have, there's no real particular requirement for FEMA, because
Or
there's.
if you attach your garage to your house in some form or fashion.
So your house is it's a substantial structure, and they're still gonna be allowed to be below. The house garage can be below the required elevation as long as it's flood vented. Now, your habitable areas in the house have to be
Gotcha.
elevated.
I don't think we have a choice. When will you be bringing this ordinance to us for, do you need this done today?
The next meeting, the next commissioner meeting.
yeah, Commissioners, good afternoon. We're gonna move it forward to the next commission meeting to do our first reading, and then we'll do a 505 following that. This has been a 2.5-month process with DEM trying to get this worked out.
For the public's edification, would you do like some quick and dirty maps that show the areas that are actually impacted? Because we're not talking about that many areas in Putnam County.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We can
so
do
the
that first.
maps are on the website.
Yep.
There's,
But I'm saying if we could have it available for the public, 'cause I don't want to have people freaking out thinking that this applies everywhere in Putnam County, because it does not.
so you'd want me to do a countywide map to show the,
I think when you come to us for the first reading,
yeah,
we could put the maps up on the board then at
Okay.
that point, and the public will see that, and that's probably a good idea, because Commissioner Rawls is right, it's not gonna affect every parcel in this county, just those that are in the flood zones.
right.
Well, everybody's in a flood zone, it's just A or E, A and E. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's flood hazard areas, actually.
sure.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Turner.
If you have a parcel that's partially in a flood zone and partially out, and you build your accessory structure outside of the flood zone, it doesn't count then, correct? Just the structure that's inside of the flood zone.
Correct. We have to make a determination based on your site plan. So if you're building, you give us a site plan, then we determine at that time whether the structure is in or out of the flood based on the FEMA maps.
Okay, good deal.
So if you're out of the flood, then you can put it at whatever height you want to.
Thank you.
Okay, good. All right, we'll see you at the next meeting then, when you bring that to us. We
All right, then.
appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go back on schedule here for just a moment and go back to our Port Authority. And we're going to recess the Board of County Commissioner workshop and go to the Port Authority, the 205. Is there any public comment on Port Authority? All right, seeing none. Is there any general discussion on anything in Port Authority? Seeing none, we're going to adjourn the Port Authority workshop. And Christine, go ahead and make that call, if you will. I'm going to move item B up a little bit, because the gentleman that I asked to talk to us about this, his wife is in the hospital, and he's taking time out of his day to kind of go at a real 50,000-foot level here on the revision of the BOCC districts.
You've reached Kirk's cell phone. Please leave a message.
At the tone, please
All right,
record
we'll
your
just move
message.
on. Maybe he can call us back or something like that. Let's go to item C, emergency services, the EOC LED sign replacement. This is page 7 to 11. Well, there's just some I don't want to get too far in the weeds. This gentleman might call us right back.
MSBU is going to be more than a 5-minute conversation, I'm sure.
Good afternoon. As many of you may know, our public messaging sign out in front of our EOC is out. It's been out. It's been out all during COVID. We're entering hurricane season. I think it's important for us to be able to notify our citizens when we have something going on of importance on that Highway 19 corridor. We've identified some money inside of our current budget. It's just not identified in the exact line to replace that sign, but we'd like to get that sign moved forward so at least we can, be able to message across to our citizens and let them know when we have issues out there.
Where are you gonna take money from to buy the sign?
It's coming out of, we have a capital line for, Ms. Julian, you want to answer that?
Yes, sir. They have a capital line in the general fund, which is not going to need the budgeted amount to complete the projects for which Mr. Grimes is planning to do for this fiscal year that has the leftover funds in it. So it's capital for his department. He's just reallocating it from one capital project to another at your approval, with your approval.
That's what you'd like to spend the money on, is a new sign?
Well, I think it's important, to let our people know. We got a sign sitting on the side of Highway 19 that doesn't work. To me, this doesn't look good when we got a blank sign sitting there. We've had people call about it and wanting to know, are we ever going to fix it because of not being able to get messages out front. So to me, it's important to fix. Is it that much important? I don't know. I can get other messages other ways, but there's some citizens that really look forward to that. So I think it is an investment we need to make.
Yeah, I would have told you a couple of years ago that I didn't support that sign, but frankly, when you don't have it, people fuss at you that they don't get the information. But what are you giving up to get this? That's my question to you.
That was my question.
So,
That's what I was trying to ask.
So
yeah, Julianne says
So
you're getting rid of one
so
capital project.
He's not giving up anything. He's able to accomplish the capital that's budgeted in that line item for less than what we originally projected the budget need to be. So he's going to accomplish that capital project that was originally budgeted to happen.
What was that capital project?
we
was
had one line that had for some
Go ahead.
some communication phone lines that we no longer need because of the microwave when we put in the communications towers. So that's $20,800 right there that we can move into this project. And we've had some like the ambulances didn't quite go in at the full amount that was budgeted. So it's some leftovers off some of these projects we've got completed. There is the money there to put the sign in.
Okay.
We also have some rehab of station money that we're not going to get spent up in this budget year. We're working on getting some of the projects completed, but they're not going to go to fully the whole entire budget amount that we have.
Okay, Mr. Adams,
I guess I'll support it if you're saying you really think you need it, but to me, I just think we could spend the money elsewhere for other ways to get messages out to the whole county.
Yeah.
And I think if the sign wasn't there for a while, people would forget it was there. I think the biggest thing is that it's been broken, that people are like, why do we have a broken sign? And then it becomes an issue where it isn't necessarily the fact that they were looking for the information, just that they notice it's broken, and it's another thing that's broken in the county. That's what I've heard from people. I've never really had anyone say, hey, I really missed the information I got off the sign. I've heard the comment that, why is it broken?
Right.
If that makes sense. So I'd rather see us spend the $40,000 on a way to get a message out to elder people in their homes, to shut-ins, to things like that, and focus it in that way.
We already have the ability to reach those folks. If we have a real emergency coming, we have the ability to reach all the folks inbound inside their home. We got their cell phone contact. We can email them. We have everything that they've submitted to us. We have a way to reach them.
Yeah.
They just got to submit it through the PutnamAlert.com. We can get information out to them. This was just one of those ancillary things outside that we get a lot of comments and feedback on, that we got something else out there in the county that's broke.
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's exactly the point.
do I need
That's
it
the input I
absolutely to
got.
make my
is that
operation
it's-
work? No. But I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, if you guys want me to, I'll spend money to go tear the thing down. I mean, that's totally up to you guys. I mean, if you want to leave it sitting out
Cover
there
it.
the way it is, we'll leave it.
Or cover it.
Or cover it,
a
whatever.
blue
I'll throw some
tarp
tarps
Or,
on. I mean, I really.
or a stationary sign basically just saying that EOC or something.
Cover with a piece of wood,
Yeah.
cover whatever. I'm not saying I'm not for it or whatever.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Hang on.
I'm
Take
sorry.
Mr. Rawls, you had a comment, then we'll go to Mr. Sutton.
How much are those portable signs that you see that the sheriff's department uses?
We've got a couple of them. So I really don't know the price. I mean, I had to go see what they currently are. I have no idea.
Would it not make sense to buy a couple more of those, spread those around the county when you need them to get a message out? And then you're hitting a lot more quarters because 19 is busy, 17 is busier, 20 is busier, just as busy if not busier. And people don't necessarily need to drive that corridor all the time. I'm just wondering if it might be better to abandon that location for that sign and look at getting some more portable signs and mobilizing those every time you need to in multiple parts of the county and get the word out.
Tell me what you guys want me to do. I mean,
There's a sign the other day, I was gonna bring this up later, but let's discuss it now, one of those portable signs that says no through trucks. And I started to take a picture of a semi pulling, some sort of liquid going past the sign. So, you know what, people become blind to stuff like that after a while, and
Right.
$50,000 is and I don't know how you get to 40,000, because if you take the old one down, put the new one up, and buy the warranty, you're at over 50,000 on a low level. And do we really need a $40,000 sign, or could we just do something that puts up words only? We don't need all the fancy colors and pictures, do we?
Right, no, this was a basic sign. I mean, this was a basic information sign. There was nothing really fancy about this sign at all. I mean, it was replacing what was currently there.
Trillion colors.
Huh?
That's a basic, trillion colors? That's a
Yeah.
basic sign? I was thinking like yellow lights.
Okay, well, I mean,
LED, the little LEDs that just spell out words,
That's
but not
basis
make.
of design for Daktronics now.
The what?
That's basis of design for Daktronics, which is what I've put up several of these in the past, so.
Yeah,
I mean, we got quotes, I mean, that were astronomical through the roof. I mean, there were some of them $70,000, $80,000. I mean, this is where we could land one in that we thought was reasonable.
The city got a quote for one for the CRA for downtown, and it was a lot less.
Okay,
But I personally think if we had something a little more basic, just put out words.
okay.
But if we mobilize those other units that we're talking about, that might be a lot more effective.
Okay.
Mr. Suggs, you had a
I
comment?
believe Commissioner Turner.
Well, actually, Commissioner Adams, and then Turner, but if you want to say.
My only comment was that, we were going to utilize funds that we had saved on other projects this year to get the sign that sits in front of your emergency operations center up and running, so that when there were issues and things that we needed to be able to get a message out on that board with a highly traffic facility there, I think that was going to be the most benefit. I absolutely agree that social media and any type of media that we can get our message out on is absolutely critical. But let's not forget that every day when we're in this convention chamber, we talk about broadband and the issues that we have with internet in our rural community already. So anything that we can do to give the public safety director some tools to get the message out there in hurricane season, fire season, things of that nature, I think is a benefit. And we are utilizing funds that were saved on other projects. That was my only comment.
Mr. Adams,
So I like Mr. Rawls' idea, and I don't care what the idea ends up being. I just think there's a more effective use to use 50 grand to get the message to more of the county. Whether you have 5 small signs that you put throughout the county when there's an emergency. I mean, I don't think a lot of people drive over to 19 when there's a hurricane and go, hey, what's the sign say? No, I know,
Yeah, I mean,
but what
it's
I'm saying is if there's 5 locations like that where people are evacuating, they see the signs, I think that might be more effective.
Right, but the other thing you
what-
got to remember is that's a stationary sign. We put the ones out on the side of the road, and the hurricane's coming through, we're going to go pull them down because
Yeah.
they're going to become a hazard. So, I mean, this is a fixed solution. Like I said, this was just an
I'm
option.
being more general. I'd like to see other options of what we could do with the
Okay.
money to get the word out to more people.
Mr. Turner?
Yes, do you happen to know if the specifications on this sign is wireless or if it's hardwired?
It's hardwired, and we'd already had the wires and all are already run. It was just going to be a direct replacement of what we have. But the company that the original sign came from is no longer in business, so we can no longer get parts, software upgrades, pieces, and stuff to fix it. So,
Well, while I think there's a lot of validity to the conversation today as far as can we get more signs and be When you're in a hurricane mode or a high energy mode, it's just not gonna happen. The signs will sit out back out at EOC, or the sheriff's department might put up the 2 or 3 they got, because there's not gonna be anybody available to go put out signs. For everybody that's been at EOC during a hurricane, we're trying to cook enough food for everybody to eat, and we're trying to keep everybody, moving and the trees out of the roads and things like that. I don't think there's gonna be time to go deploy, signs.
I
So,
100% agree with you.
I have mixed feelings over this, I truly do, because I also think that we could do something with the social media and with the different things, that we could save the money, but, by the same token, I can also see the usefulness of this. So I guess I'm gonna support the request from you, JR, on this, and if nothing else, just support you.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Pickens?
How much are you looking for on this? Because there's pros and cons to do this and not. But I kind of agree with that. Is our emergency operations center, is a sign, it's been there. It has some value. I agree with what they're saying about having some portable signs when they're,
And we currently do
when
have
they're
some portable
usable
signs
and
that we can
usable, but you'll
deploy
have to
out
pull those up
into
also.
particular areas.
So, but, how much is it? Is it 40 or is it 50? See, it's,
$40,982 is the request, so 40,000.
okay, so it's 40,000.
Well, I'm getting confused on this. 'cause-
Yeah, because
I don't have the agenda item in front of me. It's printed on the paper here, 40,000.
Well, it's on the quote
982.
as 14,982, but on page 8 from the signs has 6,975 to remove it and 5,400 so another 12,000 on,
You're seeing two quotes. They
I'm
obtained
sorry.
multiple quotes. So the only quote you're looking at is the Mega LED technology. I'm helping you out, JR, because you don't
Okay.
have the agenda item. And on the very back, the grand total there, sir, is $40,982.49.
And
So
that-
you're looking at two separate quotes. They
Gotcha.
reached out to research what options they had.
And that's taking it down, putting it up,
Yes, sir.
everything.
Yes.
Okay.
okay, so you provided 2 quotes and, okay, good. All right, good. All right, commissioners, any more discussion on this?
There's no warranty in this one.
On the Mega?
They're saying they're doing a diagnostic warranty, but what about, are we're not opting for the 5-year warranty, or?
I mean, we can, it's just, we're gonna pay for it. I mean, if it's something else we wanna do, we were already digging to put this up. So, do we wanna opt in for a 5-year warranty? That's absolutely an option.
Is there no, I'm sorry, is there no other, I'm sorry, can I?
Go ahead, sir.
Is there no
Go
other
ahead.
options signage-wise? Do we have to have something that's full color? Like College Park has one, in the right time of day, I can't see it when I drive by because of the sunlight.
Right.
And that's one of the problems I have with some of these digital signs. I don't know that we need to project pictures, just words. Is there not a less expensive route, since we're just trying to put out a message?
Yeah, we can
hieroglyphics
absolutely
went
look,
out a long
we
time
were
ago.
trying to go with a replacement that would fit in the current, whatever you call the sign holder out on the front, for no better words. We were just trying to make it to where it would still look decent on the side of the road without doing a bunch of construction. It's already built in, so we measured it and got what we could fit inside that thing. This fits the bill. We can absolutely go out and see if we can find one that just scans, messages across. I absolutely can go look, but this was just something that, I had the departments go in and look, and this is what they came back with, is what they thought would functionality for what they needed. And that's why I'm bringing it to you today. This is what the recommendation was brought to me that they thought they needed for their emergency management division.
I'd personally see us have more options. There's a one sign up on 20 at the car dealership that scrolls by and it's just words.
Yes, sir.
Every time they change it, it catches my attention. It's an attention getter. I just think there's more cost-effective solutions to just get a message out and not have to have a trillion color billboard. And if we had to dummy the case down, you've got a rough opening this size, if you had to build it in a little bit, if the sign was a little bit smaller, but still conveyed the message, say it was not as tall, but it was as wide or something like that.
Right. I was just trying to make it look decent out front, of course, so we can hire somebody.
If I had my choice, you wouldn't have the EOC on Highway 19. That'd be commercial space and on the tax rolls, but that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, Mr. Adams,
Yeah, I support almost everything you ever say up here. I just don't see the need for the sign. And the exact questions I've gotten about the sign is, why is it broke? I've never had anyone say that, why aren't we getting the messages we need? So I don't know. It is what it is, I guess.
All right, so what's the pleasure of the board? Mr. Turner?
This quote from Mega is not for a Daktronic sign, is it? It's for a matrix.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Well, I think unfortunately, and like I said, I do have just enough knowledge in this category to make me
Dangerous?
very dangerous.
Very, very dangerous.
But what we looked at when we looked through them, different quality of the signs, the Daktronics is like miles ahead of everybody else in their technology. They're the ones that put up the stuff like at the Jaguar Stadium where they have these giant multi-signs and whatever, and they go all the way down to small ones. And they have, another thing that they have is they have a module thing in there, so if your sign goes out, you don't have to replace the whole sign, you just have to replace one module in the sign. So the whole sign is made up of a bunch of small modules, and the more modules you have, the bigger the sign. So you can make them as big as that back wall on this room if you put enough modules in there. But if you have a module blowout, you only have to replace that module and not the whole sign face. Like if you see an LED television that big, if it goes out, it goes out. You lose a module, you don't lose a module. So, you know, JR, if this is something you're hell bent on, that you want this thing real bad, then I don't want to leave you hanging, but I'm just telling you, if it ain't something you're passionate about, I don't want to do it personally. But if you're passionate about it, I'll jump on board with you because I want to support you in your role. But I'm just having a hard time getting there, especially when we're buying the cheapest one we can find and putting it out there with very little or no warranty on it. And if it blows out, we're gonna have to buy a new one, possibly, they probably give you a year or something on this, maybe 2,
Okay.
a warranty, and then after that, you're on your own.
It has a 5-year parts warranty, just like the other one. It's just in fine print.
Okay. Well, I could go either way on this one. I really could.
I'd like to see more options before we make a final decision.
Could we look for some more options?
Absolutely.
Can you bring back some more options?
Absolutely. Would love to.
Why do you look over there when
Because,
we're sitting over here?
no, it's all good.
I remember driving by there one time, seeing the flames flickering, and it said brush fire season or something like that, and I was like, do we really need to have flames? That's what went through my mind.
Right.
This was years ago when it worked.
Right.
But that's what's going through my mind is, do we really need that versus,
No, I mean, I'll go look at other options. I mean,
dry season, no
I'm good
fireworks?
with the sign out front that says Putnam County EOC on it. I am. I just don't like having unfunctioning equipment.
By the way,
in front
what
of one of
about
our
the,
buildings.
what about the letters that you actually put in there and change them out manually?
We get to go chase those
Old
all
school.
down Highway 19 when they blow out.
Old school.
I like that idea, Putnam County EOC.
Well,
All right.
in all seriousness, JR, if you decide to go the lit sign and not just put a sign over it like you just talked about, if you decide to go that route, whatever it is needs to be hardwired. And I know that for a reason, because I know someone that put one in that was Wi-Fi'd, and somebody hacked the Wi-Fi, and they had some nasty stuff out there on their sign. So, yeah, because they could hack the Wi-Fi, it's got to be hardwired to your computer to keep that, to prevent that from happening.
Yes, sir.
Okay. JR. Colonel, how long is your MSBU presentation? And Colonel, how long is you and Commissioner Rawls' patrolling and policing? The gentleman can get back to us in 15 minutes, so we can go ahead and get started somewhere. And then we're gonna have to cut off at 15 minutes and come back to.
Sure. I mean, we can get started. I got
Wanna
things I
start
can
with
do this
you?
afternoon. If I can get finished in 15 minutes, I'll be glad to finish up. So,
Okay, we'll start with you, JR. So
okay.
go ahead and let's start about our fire MSBU presentation.
Okay. So,
So basically, you're not wanting us to tell you no and it's over before you go ahead and give you your 15 minutes?
right. I mean, if y'all gonna tell me no, just tell me no, and I'll go back to work. But,
Okay.
my concern is, and I mean, I'm not asking for anything that you guys, I would never come up here and shoot for the stars. I'm really not. But I see us coming into a point in the next 3 years to where we're going to have to do something. We're going to have to look for something, because we accepted a grant that's going to cost us close to $900,000 a year. Right now, we don't have a way that I can see that we can fund that. So my objective behind MSBU would be to get rid of the 1.1 millage rate that's on our tax bill and to spread it out to where we have the ability to maintain at least a minimum level of fire service that I think that our citizens deserve. I still have one critical area in the county that I feel that would still need some help. We have done a lot with what we have put on the street so far, and I believe wholeheartedly we're almost there to a point where we can go at night and go, at least we know we got something coming somewhere in a respectable amount of time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's what I would look for, is to try to eliminate the 1.1 mils and see if we can get ourselves to a funding mechanism to where we don't have to have a discussion every year. Are we going to buy 2 fire trucks? Because the more we kick that can down the road, we're going to in a position where now we got to buy 3 or 4 or whatever. I mean, I still got trucks on the road that are out of the mid 90s, early 90s that are breaking down. I got trucks that are fairly new that are staying in the shop because of the amount of miles we put on, because we haven't had a capital replacement plan. So I'm just asking for you guys to give us the ability to move forward to look at, I'm not saying we have to do it, as different ways that we can fund this fire service, because if not, I believe we have gotten and run it down as efficiently as what we can with what we currently have. So, and I mean, the price of everything has gone through the roof. I mean, just a set of protective equipment, a box of gloves costs $19 now, where we paid $3 a piece for them pre-COVID. So who knows where this thing's going to stop? And that's, you know, I just don't know where we're going to be in 3 years. And I don't want to just take today for today. We've got to project this thing, and if we don't, I think we're going to get caught short. I really do.
Amen.
So let me ask you this, and then I'm going to call on Commissioner Rawls and Commissioner Adams. And so basically the conversation today is to define a benefit unit throughout the whole county for fire service and get rid of our MSTU.
Correct.
That we currently have, the 1.1, that some municipalities aren't even participating in.
Correct.
2 of them aren't, because that would put them at one of them was going to put them right close to the cap of 10 mils anyway, if we'd have done that at that time. And you've been very gracious to send out Baker County, and I think there was another county you sent to me.
Lake County and Bradford is putting theirs in. They just had a meeting, I think Thursday last week, a special call meeting to look at theirs.
BU.
Right.
BU, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, about and the methodology and all that. So really what you're asking today is, do we want to go down this road to have a future conversation? And if we go down this road, are we going to need professional help, like consultants, to help us handle this?
We're absolutely going to have professional help, because this thing is going to have to go through the court system. It's going to have to be tried and true. And I don't believe that we at the staff level can handle writing this document. I really don't. Everyone that's got them, the one from Bradford, I know that according to the person that wrote it, they had to actually go back and sue themselves to make sure it went through the court system properly, to make sure that it did not hang themselves up somewhere along the way.
And before we leave that, and there's an old MSBU, there's a couple MSBU studies that have been around here that are on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
One I never saw. I don't believe I ever saw the end result of it. But we can, if we go that route, we could give those to the consultant and say, blow off the dust and see what you can use out of it. We don't have to rebuild the wheel completely.
No, they're absolutely good information built in all of them. But I mean, at some point we just got to sit down and say, how do you guys want to schedule this? I mean, that's the conversations we got to have, and we're going to have a consultant come in and sit down with the 5 of you guys and all of us and say, how do we really want to put this into place? Is it vacant? Is it commercial? Is it, residential? How do we want to line this thing up and see if we can come to a consensus to make it happen?
And we're also talking about potential fires, not based on past history of 3 fires in this area and 10 fires in that area. It's going to be, every homeowner is going to say, I could have a potential fire, or every vacant landowner, or every commercial building.
Correct.
Is that what okay. So Commissioner Rawls, you're up. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I've been screwing for this day for a long time, so thank you for bringing it. 2017, I believe, I sat through a presentation. Were you there or no? No. It was in the little room where they were talking about the MSBU, and I want to say it was like $75 per household, and there was a question whether or not vacant land would be included. I believe that's one of the studies you're referring to. I'm pretty sure it was 2017.
I don't think we ever brought that in for a land.
I don't think it got very far. I don't think the board was in favor of it, but You know, I'm not a soothsayer. I don't have a crystal ball. I can tell you right now, things are extremely funky in our economy. And I guess I've lived long enough now to where used vehicles cost as much or more than new vehicles. And we're subject to that as a government just as much as anybody else. It concerns me that we have a grant for half of our paid fire staff. And if that grant dries up or goes away, then, and the intent is to get us going, give us a little push, and then we sustain that, not
That's correct.
run the risk of losing those positions. And I've seen it happen several times in Putnam County, multiple times, where in the city of Plaquemine especially, grant dries up and that position's eliminated, and you disrupt the individual's life, number one, but you also disrupt the workflow. So I'm in favor of an MSBU. Commissioner Turner was very clear last time, and I support his opinion that whatever we're doing as far as revenue from the MSBU, we need to relieve that strain on the millage rate.
Yes, sir.
So we can drive our millage rate down. You know, I have a front row seat to a lot of different things that are coming into Putnam County that some are aware of and some aren't, and some of them include housing. And we can't keep bringing in people and not being able to provide services. And right now, we have 8 paid firefighters every shift.
12.
12?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 12. Colonel Wells is going to talk about 70 square miles per deputy for patrolling. What does that work out to for our guys per day? You
A
know, it's right.
A lot.
So, you know, it doesn't affect us every single day. I don't know of anybody here that suffered a loss due to fire or some sort of casualty. But I'm risk averse, as are most people. And our citizens are paying astronomical insurance rates in some cases. They're already paying for the services. They're just not aware of it. So if we can realign those numbers, get them savings on the insurance end, get a fire service that's more beneficial to everybody, I think that would be a step in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Rawls. Mr. Adams, that.
So I align with this, not purely just based on the fact you need funding, but from a funding manner, from a methodology, right? So an MSBU, I think, spreads the load across more people. I've said this every time we've talked about it. If we're not taking it away from the millage somewhere else, I'm not for it. I think it needs to be a dollar for dollar same. What you need today is what you need in an MSBU, and then just transfer that out of ad valorem to MSBU. And then anything that new that you would need based on futures or costs, obviously would be taken care of at that time. So I think this gives us a lot more flexibility. It allows more people to share the load. I look at it as the closest thing to a fair tax that a commission could do, outside maybe a sales tax, but you know, that's a whole other thing. So I'm all for it as long as those criteria are met, that whatever we take, if it's $10 million that's in the MSBU, it comes out of the 1.1 and whatever the number is. That
Right,
it's,
I mean,
it's
to me, the way I see it is that 1.1 completely goes away. I mean,
Right.
to me, that would be double dipping, and I don't think,
Yep.
you know, that 1.1 would absolutely go away.
Is Mr. Davis here to talk
Thank
to
you.
us about?
We've reached out to the property appraiser. He's going to get the gentleman to come see us or to call us about the exact, so we can get some actual statistical data on who pays the 1.1, how many of the percentage versus how many don't. And Mr. Suggs has reached out to the property appraiser's office to get us a meeting set up to do that.
Mr. Rawls?
That data is actually pretty fresh because I requested that about a month and a half, 2 months ago and got it.
Oh, did
So
you?
it's- Yeah, it should be pretty easy to pull up. So I just leaned in and asked Mr. Suggs and Rich Commando about, while we're looking at this, if there's any intention at all of looking at an MSBU for drainage, would it not be cost effective to look at everything at one time? And the answer was yes. So I think if we're looking at this, whatever we would be looking at on the fair taxing system, whatever we can lump together would be a cost benefit to the citizens.
Okay.
Just saying
Mr.
that.
Turner? Mr. Turner.
from a drainage
Wait a minute,
perspective.
Mr. Adams.
Yeah, oh, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Turner.
It's, you
Mr.
like,
Turner.
I've been waiting
go ahead.
patiently.
Thank you, brother.
You barely got me on board with the first one. I'm not on board with doing
It's
two of
just
them
a
at one time.
conversation.
You wanna blow this up? that's
No,
fine
no,
with me,
I'm
Commissioner.
saying, while we're
Blow it up.
looking at it, if the data's there,
I want to
let's.
talk about that
What
too.
I'd like to do, if we're gonna do this, is I'd like to have a cost factor up front. In other words, how much is a consultant gonna cost in our broad guess? How much is it gonna cost to set it up? Cause if we're gonna spend $500,000 to set all this up, I don't know that we've gained a hell of a lot. So I'd like to know what the upfront fees will be. I'd like to know, I'd like to have some assurances from somebody before we go through this process that exactly what Commissioner Adams-Act said is gonna happen, that we take dollar for dollar off, so we're not raising taxes on anybody, because I think we can live within our means, especially with the projected tax revenues that we got coming this year. But that's fine. If the
Mr.
commission
Turner, your
wants
mic
to
is
look at
off.
that, fine, but
Your mic is off.
Oh,
I just said
Commission wants to look at that, that's fine with me. I'm on board. Let's take a look at it. But I'm not saying that I'm on board to make it happen or later on, because it's got to be an absolute break even for the taxpayer, or even, or less money to somebody that pays property taxes, because we're spreading it over more people that don't currently pay property tax, that pay, different other revenue sources. So, if we can go there, I'm good, because it'll be more relief on the taxpayers and a further reducing of the millage rate. That's the only way you're gonna get me on board on this, is that we do that.
thank you, Mr. Turner. Mr. Adams-Act.
I'm just gonna go with Mr. Turner on the drainage thing being done at the same time. I'm not for that either, just because I don't think everyone equally benefits from a drainage plan as they do from a fire safety. So that's just my opinion. But
Thank you, Mr.
definitely
Pickens.
shouldn't be combined.
Yep, Mr. Pickens.
Okay, I agree with Mr. Turner, Commissioner and Adams-Act. If it's a dollar for dollar, I'm moving towards that thing. Do you have any idea what the survey is gonna cost?
I mean, I haven't got a fresh quote on one. Was it included in that packet we saw from the other counties?
How much did Baker pay?
Do you have that idea, Mr. Commando?
And will the information that we have from the other two, because we did discuss this when I first became a commissioner, it just didn't go very far, and so that one's pretty fresh. Would it actually assist them at all? Do you have any idea, or would it be?
I think they're going to want to gather their own data. I mean, I really don't think they're going to take somebody else's data and try to implement it into their plan. I really don't. I think they're going to come in here. I mean, I've talked to a couple of them on the phone to see what their scope could be, and have the meetings and make sure it's tried, true, and all that stuff. And they come in here and they meet with us and decide. You guys decide how you want to set it all up, and I think it'll answer all of your questions. I mean,
Well, Mr. Chair, they try to build a methodology that will stand up if challenged in court. I mean, they're defending themselves as well.
I got you. Okay.
I don't think it's going to. I mean, I don't really think it's going to blow any kind of budget to have this done. I really, really, truly don't.
Mr. Pickens, you done?
For right now, I am, yeah.
Mr. Ross?
So back when I was a delegate to the Florida State Association for the Firefighters, we would open up every year and we would define what a 1 penny per capita tax would be on our union dues. So we would say that 1 penny equals this many dollars. What I'm saying is, if we're going to go through the drill of defining what $1 raised in an MSBU, whether it's for fire, flooding, anything like that, a dollar is a dollar. It makes sense to me that we maximize our efforts and our dollars. And if we could, if it's $1 per vacant parcel of land and $2 for one with a house on it, whatever the number is, we know what a dollar equals. And it's easy to extrapolate the numbers and get to, if we're looking at doing a countywide MSBU for drainage, because God knows, putting $1 million in the budget like we did last year for ditch maintenance and culvert replacement and guardrail, that's $1 million total. That didn't get us very far, and all we do is hear complaints from people about flooding issues. So I think it's in our best interest to ask these kind of questions. At some point, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what a dollar of assessed MSBU value is, whether it's for fire, flooding, or anything else.
Mr. Adams, you got 1 minute, and then
Drainage.
we're going to go on to
I'll take 10 seconds. I'd much rather see item C's money go towards funding this assessment
Okay.
for an MSBU.
There you go.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Item C for the
The sign money.
Okay.
I'd rather see it go towards this analysis than a sign.
Just if you will, stay close because we'll come back and finish this conversation of where we're going to go to. Christina, you want to go ahead and make that call again, please? Mr. Overturfer, do you feel more comfortable sitting up here with us, up at this seat right here where the microphone is? Please do. Mhm. First citizen, yes. And this is what we're-
Chairman, I'm gonna run to my office and my glasses.
That's what I wanted. Let's hope we can get him.
Kurt Spitzer.
Mr. Spitzer, this is Commissioner Larry Harvey. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good. Can we turn him up just a little bit more? You're in our public meeting, and we're just now, we have your packet in front of us. So what I'd like for you to do, Mr. Spitzer, if you don't mind, Mr. Spitzer was with Florida Association of Counties. He also has his own company, KS&A Governmental Compliance, and he's kind of the, from my understanding, the knowledgeable one as far as redistricting in the state of Florida. So would you kind of give us, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today with your wife's condition, and we are praying for her, but could you take about a 5-minute, 50,000 height flight here and let us know basically where we're at this time and in the process, if you will?
Sure. Thanks. Where we are is this: between Chapter 124 of the Florida statutes, which deals with commission districts and redistricting, and also Article 8 of the Florida Constitution, after each decennial census, commissions should look at the new data and determine if you are out of whack, so to speak. Commission districts, like other districts, need to be as nearly equal in population as is possible. And generally speaking, a good target is to have districts that are not more than 3% over or under the average district size. If there are two districts that are more than 10 percentage points apart, that's a red flag. And so an example would be if one district was 5% over and another district was 6% under, that's a difference of 11 percentage points, and that's a problem. There are exceptions to that, but generally speaking, that's a problem. Now, the Bureau of the Census is required to deliver the data to states and local governments by March 31st of the year after the census. So that was this past March. This year, I should say last year, because of the COVID pandemic, it threw the counting process off significantly. And currently, the census is saying that they will have the data available for states and local governments on or before September 30th of this year. So it creates a more narrow window of time to get this done. There are some things that could be done now to get ready for the process, but it's a narrow window of time. And let me say this: I think that if there's not significant growth, or if the growth has occurred evenly throughout the county, maybe you don't have to make any changes. Or maybe the changes that need to be made are very, very minor. Then the process is pretty simple. It becomes more complicated if there are significant changes that need to be done. And it's not a matter of, it's just very complicated to draw a map that's in compliance. That's not the problem. The problem is, if there are significant changes, is building consensus amongst the county commission, amongst community leaders, and things like that. And that just takes time to do that. But the mapping process itself is not that difficult once you have everything that's loaded up into the software. So that's the 50,000-foot summary.
All right, Mr. Spitzer, thank you. And we got our supervisor of elections here. Charles, would you like to kind of expound on the conversation maybe you and I had earlier about my interpretation of the state statute and what you found with the federal guidelines? You got to turn your microphone on.
Yeah, in discussing with other counties, and we've been having
You got to speak directly in.
quite a few discussions with other counties that are in their process. One of the biggest things that they have all said is we, as a county, cannot cross over a congressional line. So therefore, we have to wait till, unfortunately, September 30th or whenever the administration gets us those numbers, because if we, let's just say Paul's got a precinct and it goes across and the federal line is now drawn in the middle of his precinct, that's a no-no. Or at least that's what I have been told by several other counties in the state that are already looking at stuff. So they have to wait till the congressional, and that was, I know that was the way it was in the last redistricting, because we were end of November, 1st of December, getting the districts completed in our county for the 2012 election cycle. And Duval, Clay, all the big ones that we've been talking to are looking at roughly about the same time period, unfortunately, just due to, I guess, COVID and whatever else. I will throw this out there. There's also, just last week or 10 days ago, the Biden administration threw out the numbers of the reapportionment as far as getting new congressional districts. In Florida, believe they should have gotten 2 and only received 1. And so I'm hearing rumors now that somebody may go to court to decide if something was done politically to influence that. So there's a possibility that something like that could come in that pushes this farther than that, if a judge or a court gets involved in it, if they go that far. They may stay with the 1, but most every leader I've talked to in the state of Florida thought sure that Florida would get 2. They thought Texas would get 3, and both of them were short. So these are the kind of things that, will influence it to some point. As he said, and as I pass out to you all, you see that the growth in our county, we've averaged about 1,000 voters. But now remember, the reapportionment is not on voters. It's totally on the census numbers. So again, these numbers don't affect you one bit. It just shows you sort of where we are, that we've gained about 1,000 every year since the last census.
Yeah. So, Mr. Spitzer, you hear that conversation right there.
Well, it was difficult, but I think I caught most of it. Let me say this, and I need to run here.
Okay.
The state of Florida, they're not going to get the redistricting data until everybody else, which is going to be September. They're not going to be in session for redistricting until next year. The Florida Constitution, Chapter 124, say you need to redistrict now. And now, in terms of if the concern is splitting a precinct or something like that, we can work on that. But I've never heard of this being a bar for a county to redistrict. I need to run right now.
Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to call you back at some other.
No, thank
later.
you very much. We appreciate it, and we'll get back with you, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So Charles, I guess what I'm hearing basically is what you're saying. I think we're saying the same thing. The state law allows commissioners to redistrict in any off year, any odd year. But you're saying because we had a census done, there's a federal requirement. If we didn't have that census done, it was 2017, we could have redistricted and it wouldn't have been a problem. But now that there's a census done, there's a possibility of a congressional seat crossing over a precinct. And we need to know that. But, you know, I think I don't think we can wait till the end of the year. I don't think we can wait till next year. I think we need to start having this conversation now and going, are we happy with the boundaries? Do we want to shore up our boundaries? But I'm not willing to wait till the end of the year. It might be a little tweak here and there, but I don't see it being a major thing, so.
Well, I guess, Larry, Mr. Chairman, the only negative about that, I agree that you don't want to wait if you don't have to. But the problem is, if the census numbers come in at the end of September, and all of a sudden Commissioner Rawls's district has gained 10%, you just heard what he said, that's going to be a flag, they're going to throw it out, and you're going to have to start all over. So I guess most of the counties are like, okay, why do we need to go through and do all of this, have it ready, and then it get thrown out? Because the numbers is what we have to base it on. The other thing I'm going to throw out to you is, if you look, they've always, at least in the last 10 or 20 years, started in the south end of the county. So Mr. Pickens's position is number one. You would have thought that number two would be next, but it doesn't. And so that would be one of my questions for you all to decide. Are you going to start in the south end of the county and work our way forward and try to get the districts just as close to that magic number as we
No,
can?
they start on there all the time. We start somewhere else this time. We'll be on South Park.
Chairman.
Mr. Turner, go ahead. I saw your light. I thought you.
Okay. Number one, you know, there may be a little bit of difference, but I don't really think there's gonna be a giant difference in different districts from where they are right now to where they move forward.
I agree.
Because I'm seeing the same, basically the same amount of people moving to all different areas. It's not like everybody's moving to Crescent City or San Mateo and nobody else is moving anywhere else, or Interlochen or wherever, nobody else is moving. I mean, that's just, I don't believe to be the case. So I think if we got pretty close, I don't think we need to change the districts. It doesn't matter if you call them A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, where they are. I mean, unless you're OCD or something and you just can't stand it. But I mean, it's been like this for a long time. So I think those are really short-sighted. A short-sighted vision would be to say, okay, let's change all the numbers and all that. That's just, let's focus on what we think we need to do. I mean, we think there's some minor errors on the map around the county and in different places, and I don't know that it isn't time to start trying to redraw some of them or whatever around. And then if we got to tweak it because of something like you come up with later, it's a lot easier than trying to meet every evening for 2 weeks to meet the deadline if we're prepared in advance. We don't even have to accept it. We can just kind of have it ready and say, we all like the looks of this, you know, if it turns out, then we're prepared, instead of burning the midnight oil to get it finished at the last minute. So that's the only thing I'd have to say.
And if you'll look at the numbers that I presented to you over on the column, you'll notice most of those changes are fairly close together. Bill's is the only one that he's at 1,700 and something. You know, two of them are in the 1350s, one at 14 and one at 16. So you can see there's not one district that really has changed a lot, and they're all positive numbers. So it's not like somebody has lost 5,000.
Right.
So that part's going to be equal. Also remember that it's just not you all, it is school board that has to approve this also. So this affects both you.
Yeah,
both
but
groups.
state statute gives us the ability to start.
It does, but the last time that they had a change, they did move, and one particular school board member had to agree to go from number 4 to number 5, and he did, just to make it easy on everybody. So they do have say-so about it, and should be included.
Okay, Mr. Adamczak?
Yeah, I like what Mr. Turner said. I think there's no reason we can't move this forward and be prepared. And if the congressional line, which I honestly don't get the impression that it's going to affect us too much, I pray that Putnam County stays as a whole congressional district or as part of one.
Count on it.
I know we can't count on it, but I think it's what's going to happen. I hope so. And that, honestly, the tweaks I see that we could do are kind of minor. Maybe you know, Barden could be under one area, or Hawthorne could be under one area. Those are only two, coming from the west side, that's only two that I really see that really, after reading this, that kind of apply to this, where you keep a community together, that type of thing.
And some
The
of
rest of it's pretty
Others are
straightforward.
Some of this is
Yeah.
pretty easy
Yeah.
too. I mean, if we need to make District One a little bit smaller, you could just like, instead of stopping at Dunn's Creek, move it down to the road that turns to Willaca, 309 or whatever it is, to turn to Willaca. I mean, so some minor tweaks to make the numbers get a little closer on this sheet. At least it'd give us an idea of about where we were,
Right.
you know, moving forward. We could always change it a little bit later.
Then if the state district line changes, then we just have to adjust that. I think we could adjust to that.
I agree.
Let me just give you a couple of rumors. Couple of rumors is that Marion and St. Johns County both believe that because they are growing so fast, that that new congressional district should be included in them. If either of those get that, Putnam is going to be affected, I can promise you.
How?
How?
It'll,
I could see us being split like Marion is now. They're split in 3 different ways. We're fortunate, as I've come before you all before and said, my word, it may be 50 years since we've been one congressional seat, one Senate seat, one state rep seat. And
And we're gonna fight to keep it that way too.
we are, but I have talked with our representative, and he thinks it's gonna, some of it's gonna change some. I hope it doesn't change too much to where, to me, that's a Putnam County seat, and we need to keep it that way. But he did say to me back a couple of months ago that he's worried that they will move it toward Clay County more. So there may be some total changes that we're not expecting. Let's
I
hope
have a
not.
problem having 2 congressmen. I have a problem having 2 senators or 2 representatives. That's what I have.
Larry, the only negative about it is if you're 15 or 18% of that congressman's
I know,
vote,
then-
then you get more
Yeah,
face time than if you're at 2%. I mean,
yep, you're
we
right.
did have one before, and we never saw that person as much as, except for election time.
A good point. Mr. Rawls?
So just, if I understand this correctly, I'm looking at the number that you gave, just using this as a purely as an example, there's an 11.5% difference between District 1 and District 2. You're saying that would automatically trigger us to redraw the district lines when the census comes back and we're
Right.
looking at the population totals?
I'm listening to what the gentleman said, that 10% is a flag. So if
Right.
one drops 5 and one gains 6, then that would be, they'd say, well, wait a minute, you need to look at those two and change them
But,
one way or the other, whichever you come up with.
okay, but we can't just look at new voter
No,
registration.
no, I understand. I'm giving this as an
Yeah,
example.
exactly.
Purely as
Because
an
people could have
example.
left
Yeah.
and, yeah.
I mean, going on your
Side of
theory
the
that,
vote.
if we're going on your theory that we're less than 75,000 and we haven't really grown that much, you know, if we've grown 1,000 people over the last 10 years, then we're probably not going to see a significant increase in one area overall anywhere. So I personally don't see any reason why we can't just start going ahead and getting prepared for it, but knowing that we may have to make adjustments and whenever the data is released from the federal government.
Maybe Mr. Pickens?
I think you answered the question, but say the difference between 1 and 2, even though they don't touch each other, you would have to do something with each of those districts because of the difference in them?
Well, the ultimate goal, I think, is what he was talking about, and my other consultants that we've talked to, is you want to try to have all 5 as close to whatever that magic number. So if Jeff's right, let's just say you're at 75 and then you divide it by 5 and you're at 15,000, you want every district, as I think he said, 3 to 5%, you know, so you could be 17.2 at one and 16.8 at another one, or, you know, that kind of thing.
Okay.
You want it as close. But, you know, you're probably not, and they're probably not going to kick it out if you're a little bit off one way or the other. But if your district is at 7,000 and Bill's is at 20,000, that's not going to carry.
Sure. And I think, I do agree that it's time to look at some of the lines. I think, Commissioner Turner, don't you go across the river into Brown's Landing? That district goes across the river and has that little
I think
point?
just right in that point.
Yeah, and I think there's some things that we could go ahead soon in the next month or two and start going, we can move this around a little bit, but I don't see the lines changing a
This
whole
whole
lot.
situation's simple. If a slice of the pie is not big enough, you make that slice a little bigger.
Right.
If it's too big, you make that slice a little smaller.
And
But you gotta follow boundaries.
I
Chairman Tur-
understand,
Commissioner
but
Turner,
it could also be section line boundaries.
could be.
Doesn't just have to
Yep.
be roads that you just can't use, you know, it could be any public boundaries, section lines, roads, rivers,
Sure.
you know, whatever. There's something in somewhere in every area that you could just adjust it a little bit very easily, I think.
All right, and so that leads me into the other item that we need to discuss, and that is, I've been in discussion with IT, because we have to have mappers that will do this. They also have to have software and hardware to be able to put the data whenever it comes in and incorporate all of that. And so I do know
I'll
that.
let you start
I
sitting
do know
next to
that
him, or
IT
you'll give him more.
They are waiting on a handwritten proposal, the one group that several of the counties are using, that has done it for several different cycles, will not do it in email. They do it personally in the mail. And so I understand from IT that we're going to get a quote from them here in the next week to 10 days to get us started with that process. But it's just not that easy. There is right now, from what I understand, nobody that is in the county that is able to do that. So we got to work on that part of it. So it's good that we're having this discussion, but it allows us to start the process, get the people in line, get the software, the hardware, those kind of things to draw the maps, to overlay it, and then we can work from there.
What's wrong with a pencil?
That doesn't qualify in court.
Well, when did we approve a new mapping software? Because I don't believe we've done that yet.
That's what I'm hinting at.
That's where the MSBU.
But you said
BU's
IT's
coming
already
in.
started working on it.
No, I said they are in the process of getting quotes, getting contacts, of getting stuff like that.
Have
because-
y'all heard about that?
Well, and I wish
No,
they
sir,
would-
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe we have at this point.
I wish they would have been invited, because they're one of the most important aspects of who draws the maps.
I wish they'd have just not done something without asking their damn boss first.
Well, no.
Well, we don't know if they've done that yet, sir, so let's,
They're just getting-
let me look.
They're getting quotes and stuff. Yeah, they haven't done anything. They're just getting some ideas on what kind of cost to present to you.
Way to go, Charles. Look what you've done now.
Yeah, that's fine, that's fine. I might have jumped the gun. I apologize.
Fighting up here.
No, it's probably with me. I apologize, so. Okay.
Well, we got a chain of command around here. If they're doing them kind of things, I'm not against it. I just think they need to go through their chain of commands. And if they're working on something without letting our administration know about it, I think that needs to be fixed. I just
Well,
do.
And again, the county
I'll take
commissioners drive the
responsibility, but
train on this.
I mean, if I tell my staff
I
to
don't
go
need
get
you
a
to
quote
take
on.
any responsibility, Charles. I truly don't. I'm just
No,
saying that we have a
but I'm
chain
not
of
trying to-
command that IT needs to follow that sometimes they don't think they do.
Well,
It's okay.
Maybe I misspoke. So if you're gonna blame somebody, blame me.
No,
I
it-
don't want IT, because
We're good, we're good.
we're just trying to set a
We
goal
appreciate
to
you taking one for
accomplish
the
it.
team, Charles, but yeah.
It was probably me misunderstood. Don't worry
I'm,
about it.
I'm gonna segue that for a second, if you don't mind.
Okay. Paul, Mr. Adams, Mr.
I mean,
Adams.
this does go back to the whole idea of the IT committee, and, because IT is a unique thing where they're serving multiple heads, right? I mean, they do report directly to Mr. Suggs and the board, but they also are servicing our constitutional officers. So they do get phone calls outside of the norm, and how do you say no? It's a catch-22 they're in a little bit that's unique to IT. So I think the sooner we can get that committee going where, you know, you have a seat at the table and, you know, all the other constitutions have a seat at the table, and we can do that, I think the better.
Well, I'm just happy that we're having this conversation now. I mean, here we are in May, having this, and I think we need to put, like Commissioner Turner said, get down with a pencil and draw some maps and be ready. And, you know, what if this happened? We could draw 2 or 3 different maps. And when that time comes, we could pull that out and go, we're pretty darn close on this one. You know, and the school board could already start thinking about the same thing. So we don't have to go change any districts and wait for that, because I don't want to wait till the last moment to put all this together.
Yeah, I don't wanna be here every in the last 2 weeks trying to put this together to be on time.
Right.
Anything we can do ahead, we need to try to do ahead. And if it is that we need to do some of those kind of things, you're exactly right. Now's the time that we need to know about it, where we can start figuring out how we're gonna pay for it, and if it's in the budget for next year, and all these different things that would come down. But
That we're required to do.
I'm adamantly opposed on waiting till September to start this process. I think
agree.
we need to get as much of it done as we can.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I guess what I'm saying is, and from what I've been told, from IT's discussion, it's not that simple just to sit up and draw a map because you don't have any of the numbers.
Right, we need the
See, I
data.
mean, you and I can sit here and say, man, I'd like Terry's district to be a little more even, and we can draw it, but how many did you add? How many did you take out? That's the problem. That's where the interaction comes in, that they've got to have time to get the software they need to be able to do that, to where when Terry changes that a little bit, oh, that affected 148 citizens.
How did they do it back in 10 when we did this last time?
The person I talked to yesterday did it and ended up with 12 whole weeks of overtime because they worked so much. And she's no longer with our county, so I did reach
So
out and find out.
we
So
have
when
the
we had-
ability to do it software-wise, we just don't have
We
the
did
person
then,
to
but
do it?
she even said yesterday when I talked to her that she said, I think the county's gonna have to buy stuff because, or you're gonna use a consultant that has that ability and can do it and then hand it to you and then you change it, tweak it, you know, those kind of things. But IT is gonna be very important in this because they're the ones that have gotta mesh the two together and say, this is the map, this is how many voters or how many residents we have affected as far as the census, to try to get all 5 of you roughly about the same number, you know, if it's 12,000, 15,000, whatever it is, that's what you're trying to do, but you've got to have the data. When you move it, when you redraw it, like you said, you got to know how many did you just affect.
Yeah, Mr. Rawls, do you mind if I?
No, go ahead.
But there are campaign programs out there, and I use one that I can actually draw a circle around a neighborhood, and that gives me how many voters are in that neighborhood. It gives me immediately. You and I were talking before the meeting, you know, there's right now 52,000 or about 52,000 registered voters in the county and maybe 10,000 young people underage. So you're looking at 62, so we're not that far off from 74. So, you know, we look at just those maps and go, well, we take 1,000 for Commissioner Raw for this district and we move, you know, take away 1,000 from District 4 because that one's grown. I think we could probably get real close using that software instead of trying to go out. And I'm just thinking off the top of my head.
Right.
I can't swear to this, but I think we can find a way to get started, and then we can overlay at that point. Mr. Rawls, you have your light on?
Well, I was sitting here struggling trying to, you know, figure out where we're gonna get the numbers from. If we go back to the 2010 census, that's not relevant, I wouldn't think. If we
No,
use that
I was just giving you the 43,000 number was where I took over, and we're
Right.
at 51 and a half
Is
now.
it based
so-
on registered voters or total county population?
No, registered,
Right.
those are registered voters, so we've averaged 1,000 new voters every year.
No, I mean the
I think y'all are talking about two different
districts, the
things.
district lines. Is it based on total population?
Total
Yeah.
population, right.
So, you know, if we went back, when I moved here in 1988, the population was 72,500. So if we went back to 2010, I don't think we've had a huge increase in population. I agree with you on that. Would it be foolish to use that data to use as a starting point?
If you applied a multiplier to it, you probably
Yes.
could.
Yeah,
You
if we said, we think we're at 74,999.9, then you take the 73,000 that we were
Probably do.
5 years ago and divide that by the 75, you get a percentage, and then you bump each district by that. It would, although, you know what, if you bump every district, nothing's gonna change. So,
It probably won't change.
so
but-
where do you know, then the question is, where do you move the people to? They all move to District 1?
Where
all
all the
registered
that's
District
where all
one.
the equipment is.
They got more registered voters, new registered voters in District
Jeff,
1.
one of the things is, and I
Commissioner
told,
Pickens has been working his butt off down there, guys.
I told Larry, we're happy that we've added 1,000 new voters every year, but that doesn't mean they
Right.
weren't already here and just didn't want to register. You'd still be surprised how many people say, I'm not going to register.
Your
'cause
family's still in business.
I
the
don't
funeral's
want
in
to,
business,
I don't
right?
want to do jury duty. And they don't realize that that was moved 20 years ago. You know, it goes on driver's license.
Now, we have a lot of funerals too.
Well, Mr.
So
Chairman,
it's-
I think
Mr.
this
Adams,
was a
hang
great
on.
discussion, but
Hang on just a minute, and I'll get right back
I
to
don't
you.
know how we get to
promise.
there.
I think we'll be pretty close
Yeah.
if we use the original data, and then if there is some awe-inspiring thing like a Senate line or something, then we just have to adjust. It will take a lot less time to adjust to a line move or some unexpected circumstance where Johnson, Florida all of a sudden has 10,000 people, which isn't going to happen. I think we could adjust that, like Mr. Turner said, with shifting over a road or a boundary, and I think we'll be able to do something with that.
Okay, Mr. Turner, last word on it?
Yeah, the only thing I was gonna say is I think this was a great discussion to start off this process, but it's way early, and I think we do need to start sooner rather than later doing these type of things, but, all we can do at this point is make the best guess we can. If you could come up with some numbers from your campaign software that would draw in a district or a neighborhood or whatever, just to see for giggles, if, kicks and giggles, if it would actually kind of match what the 10. If it does, then we're probably on track.
Mr. Overturf, you got any last words on this topic?
No, I appreciate the opportunity, and I think we can just work from here and see, see what we can come up with. But I think court-wise, you're probably going to have to wait until September to get those numbers. If not, you probably will end up in court just out of, just because you didn't wait.
No, I'm saying we could finish it up then, but if we
Oh,
got
yeah,
a jump
right.
start on it, it would be
Right.
some tweaks instead of a complete rewrite.
It's just, please remember, every time we do something, we are required in a certain number of days to send out new voter cards. And I don't think Mr. Suggs wants me to come in with $1 million extra for postage and stuff because we kept changing.
Oh, no,
But by
no, no.
law, we have to
I
do
don't
it.
think that's
So
what we're
we
saying
wanna
at
do it-
all,
We want
Charles.
to do it one time.
We do
Yeah,
want to do
I'm
it
just
once.
saying prepare. There's nothing like being prepared.
Yeah, right.
So can I
Mr.
offer
Rawl?
this? Why don't we get 5 district maps printed, larger, that we can, I have all 5 district maps behind my door, but they're future land use maps. I don't know they would get us where we want to go with that, but if we could do 5 district maps that show the hard boundaries, and then at our next workshop or next 2 or 3 workshops, just chip away at it a little bit and start trying to make some
Well,
inroads.
I think if I may, Mr. Chairman, you're almost gonna have to have one map showing the
Well, no, yeah,
5
one big
districts.
map.
You can tweak things on
Yeah,
there.
one big map, but then the districts individually, so we can zoom in and, because I know yours and my districts are real funky when you get over here, by Rolling Hills and down by, what's the road goes to Brown's Landing, yeah.
Yeah, I
so-
think somehow or another, if I may, Mr.
City of
Chairman,
Plaquemine.
somehow or another, we're gonna have to come up with an idea of what the changes may or may not be. And if we can do it through your campaign software, through a
Or Clay
ballpark or Clay software, or whatever we're gonna do, if we could just have some ballpark ideas of what changes we think may take place, then we can start tweaking a little bit and be prepared for when the hard numbers come in September. It's a matter of, oh, we got to change this line a little further.
right,
Or
that's
we got to move that down or something, but we don't have to meet every night for 3 weeks to try to get this done by deadline.
Would it be helpful if they brought a big
Commissioner
TV in and
Turner,
used it
can I
as a
ask you,
monitor?
what would you be basing your changes on?
Well, that's what I was just asking.
Okay.
If they could come up, be it through the campaign software or through some type of information from property appraiser, I don't know if they have anything like that or not, but some type of information that we're gonna base us the early start on. But we can't pass it until we get the real information, but
Right,
at
right,
least
no.
we'd have the lines tweaked. And do we need to shove everything around? Do we need to move this up? I mean, we don't know until we get at the numbers. And Chairman thinks he can come up with some numbers.
Well, I'm sure, Clay, you can define boundaries and too, can't, I mean, you want to come up here and speak real quick? I know you can because I've seen some of the work that's come out of there. But if I said I want everybody that lives in this area from boundary to boundary, you can come up with a number on that.
Well, this isn't my expertise, but
Right.
yeah, I think I can come up with boundaries. Isn't the 2020 census data, the preliminary data, available?
No,
No.
not for
It's-
counties it's not. For states it is, but not drilled down to counties.
September.
Okay, so,
Estimates out there, but not, the estimate was last year. But that, no hard numbers. And Sarah's been beating me up every day about that.
so the estimate, so there's no current, even preliminary county
No.
data anywhere?
No.
Okay.
But your software will go boundary to boundary to
Yes,
boundary to boundary.
yes.
That's what the campaign software, you just pick out and then it draws a circle and says, here's how many people are in that boundary.
Well, the people, I don't know if that data is available or not. I mean, we could certainly do voters if that information is available to us, but the
Could you
people.
take a look for us, Clay, and see if there's anything you can do to help us out in this process?
Yes, sir.
But you know what, it might say there's so many houses in there.
Chairman Harvey, I was going to ask you, I think the political stuff is voters, not people.
Right, but his software will give me the list of who's in the household. And if you go, Clay and Mrs. Davis live here, and we automatically project that you have one child, that might put us in the right number using a multiplier of some sort.
Yeah, so we don't have the household data.
But
We
you have names of people who live in those boundaries.
We have the property owner's name.
Right,
We
you
don't
have the property
the
owner's name.
occupant's name.
Right.
Like if it's rented or what have you.
But if we know that most people have
Yeah, I
1.1
mean,
child
right.
throughout the county, we've already determined there's 10,000 children. My point is,
Yeah.
yeah,
With rough information,
Right.
I mean, it's gonna,
Very
you're
rough.
projecting, right, until we get the actual data.
sure.
But yeah, I mean, if you want to do a rough projection, certainly you can do a rough projection and we can create boundaries and put the numbers in there and then you can kind of move them around and then we can
Yeah.
recalculate the numbers.
Okay, good.
I mean, without the actual data though, it's not as smooth.
No,
I mean, if we
we
had the
realize
data,
that.
then we could just load that data in and then we can move them kind of on the fly and then tell you, okay, this is.
But you
how many-
might find out that District 1 does have, since the last census or the last districting, has another 500 people living in this area based on that, on your information. And with that, then we might need to, we already might understand we got to move that line down a little bit. And if that be the case, we already know that, so.
Well, with it being this early, maybe we can just see what's available.
Right,
If
right.
it's not available, it's not there. You can't manufacture it. I mean,
No, I get
that
it.
if you could come up with some kind of, any kind of a broad thing that says, you know, we're good where we are, we need to tweak District 2, or we needed
Right.
one, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and it may be multiple sources of data to get to that point. I mean, it won't be as good as the actual finished data, but we can pull in different data
Can you pull in
to
school
determine
district? School district data, can you pull that in as well?
if it's available, yeah.
That
Okay.
would get us.
Well,
the
this is a great conversation.
Yeah,
Thank you for.
Thank you, Chair.
And we're going to get back to this in a future date. We're not going to let this linger out there for too long. Charles, thank you. Mr. Overturf, I'm sorry, I should have referred to you as that, so I appreciate you coming today. Believe me, this was this is just the start of a conversation. It's all this was for. And I would encourage us to continue this, and also with the school board. I think that's important that we start having that conversation. Thank you, Mr. Overturf. We appreciate it very much. Okay, moving on, we're going to go back to JR. We didn't finish the conversation with JR, so we gave you time to come up with any additional
I spent my time on the
thoughts.
phone, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Turner.
You know, I'm okay with this. If it's all right, why don't we just let him go ahead and continue looking into it and come up with the additional information we're looking for? He's not asking for approval today to do the MSBU. He's asking for the ability to move forward and look at it as an option. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
Well, see, I say we should look at any and all options. I'm not saying I'm for it or against it today, but I think we should look at any and all options.
Okay,
Okay, good.
I'm good.
perfect. Thank
Mr.
you.
Suggs,
Yeah,
that's not
You're-
what you,
it is absolutely exactly what we need. We need consensus for administration and Public Safety Director Grimes to move forward and looking at this, but really what Mr. Grimes was coming here to ask you for today was for the ability to hire the consultant to give us the assistance that's needed to be able to come back with appropriate numbers so you folks can absolutely know what it is that we're looking at trying to do. And it wasn't lost on administration that you're absolutely looking at a one-for-one cost reduction and any abilities that we have to do that. And we won't know that unless we have the ability to get that study done.
so along those lines, let me ask you this, Mr. Suggs. Do we need to go out for bid on this matter with an RFQ, RFP, if we wanted to hire a consultant? I'm sure there's more than one out there. I know FAC has people, but tell me how you see that working, and do we bring that back to the board at that point?
Yes, sir, I'll turn that over to procurement if you don't mind, just so I don't
mind a
speak out of
bit.
turn.
Ms. Julianne?
Do you want to talk?
You don't have to, because what you're gonna do, or what you would propose to do, is hire a law firm. So legal services are exempt from that process. So that's why you see Bryant, Miller and Olive, Hopping Sands and Green, they're really the firms that do those things. And then they hire companies like Stantec as their independent consultants. So that's who the FAC uses.
So to ask the question, wouldn't it be prudent for us to reach out to 2 or 3 of those prominent firms that handle this and see what kind of a ballpark price we could get?
Absolutely.
come back
That's
to us?
That's certainly the options that we would
And bring it
look at and
back
bring
to
it
us
back
at
to you.
that point?
But we just need some consensus moving forward, if that's what the board would like for us to do, and bring that back to you. We'd like to do that.
Mr. Adams?
I'm all for it. The 1-for-1, I just want to qualify that just a little bit, because we do know there's some 1-for-1 plus known inputs, obviously. We know that with the grant that we got, that there's this thing 3 years from now for 900,000. We need to take that stuff into account as part of the growth of fire service beyond the 1-for-1. So 1-for-1 and anything known, and I'd like to see it documented both ways. If it's known, how does it look in the fire tax that currently exists, and how does it look in the MSPU?
Okay.
It's I just want to clarify my opinion of what 1-for-1 sounds like.
Mr. Rawls?
So, we bring in a certain dollar amount with the 1.1 mil right now.
Correct.
We'll be able to tell what the MSBU total would be at a prescriptive amount, whatever, and that's gonna be up to us. They're gonna, I assume, come in and say, at this level, this level, this level, and give us a smorgasbord to choose from. But Bradford, Union, Lake counties, didn't they just all go through this recently?
Yes, Lake County's had theirs established for a long, extensive period of time. I'm thinking of plus 10 years.
Well, can we not find out what they paid and what the going rates are lately? And
I mean, I've got an estimate back from the one that did Lake Counties, and it was
Sure that-
$58,000 to complete their complete study. One brings it back, and it includes the continuing services of them coming back each and every year to give you guys an update and rework the figures. So if there was a huge population growth, there's additional numbers, you can absolutely get those back. But that was just one company that I mean, we haven't reached out to several. So I mean, that of course that could be the cheapest, or it could be the least or the most expensive. So I mean, we don't know. We could reach out to several of them and see what the ballpark is. But that was definitely a number where you can get started with that.
and once upon a time, we agreed to spend $50,000 to look at setting up what we're talking about right now, and we didn't spend that money. So I would say this would be a really good way to spend that money. But I'm in favor of it. Whatever we got to do to get to it, the sooner the better. We got a long road to hoe, and this is just the beginning stages of it.
Mr. Turner?
So what you're asking today is to be able to move forward in the process and look into what would be the next steps, what the generation would be, what the consultant would cost, the different things. That's all you're asking for today, correct?
Well, we also need to, I mean, do you want to guys get me to get prices back and come back again and ask, or do you want us just to go with what we can do with the chairman and administrator and move this process forward without coming back to another meeting?
No, I think we need to bring it back.
You want to bring it back?
Or could we do what we've done in the past and other things and say a cap, not to exceed?
Not to exceed 50 grand or something?
Well, I haven't, do I still have a full?
You do, sir, you do.
I'm not on board with this yet. I'm telling you, I'm trying to get all the information and whatever, but you haven't got me on this one yet.
Okay.
I think that that it's got to make sense for the taxpayers. And the only way that I can see that it makes sense is that we live within our means. I don't care if you switch the burden from all taxpayers, from all property taxpayers to spread more evenly across because of citizens, ad valorem or whatever. I'm just telling you, it's got to make sense. And if the person that's paying for fire service right now has to pay the same property tax and additional fire service, you lost me. Y'all be 4-1, y'all can do whatever you want. I'm not gonna sit up here and raise taxes. I'm not gonna do that. But if we can get even to even here and spread it over a broader base of people that are gonna pay, you'll get me on board with that one, because it's more fair.
Correct.
But you're not gonna, I'm not gonna raise taxes. I think we can live within our means. I know it won't be as easy, but I think we can live within our means. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
I think it was just left on from when I interjected. So
Mr.
rudely.
Rawls?
I don't think we can live within our means. With the changes that are coming at us right now, with the needs of the fire service and the fact that we don't have the robust volunteer fire service.
You did that?
This is going to be something that's absolutely necessary. But by instituting the MSBU, we're doing away with the MSTU, correct?
Correct.
So we're taking away the MSTU tax. The folks that don't participate in the MSTU will now be able to participate in the MSBU, and it will be equal as far as homeowners go. Last time we looked at this, or the county looked at it, there was a price for homes, a price for vacant land, a price for commercial real estate. So, you know, I participate in all the above, and I'm gonna probably end up paying more money, you know, if we hit vacant land. But it's something that I think that we really need to do for the citizens going forward in order to prevent from happening what happened last year, where they had increases that were beyond their control. And you know, we talked about earlier, you have 12 firefighters on duty, but how many engines do you have staffed full-time 24/7? That's what I was getting to. That's,
Well, right, I mean, we got 4, you know, throughout the county. I mean, we've got a couple of them
24/7.
on squads and a couple of them.
I'm saying, how many engines do you have 24/7? If you had to make an initial attack right now, how many engines could you roll?
3.
And how many men are each engine?
2 on each of those, and there's some tanker operators and stuff scattered throughout the
Right.
county too.
So what I'm saying
put it
is
all
you're, I could sit here and paint a really bleak picture, especially when you do the 2 in, 2 out rule.
Sure.
You're not making an initial attack for quite a little while, and you could end up losing life and property. So I don't want to sit up here and beat the drum too loudly, but I think this is something that we absolutely need to look at. It's an alternative funding source. If there's other sources, I'd say let's bring it on the table, but this is the low-hanging fruit.
Mr. Adams, that?
I'm all for living within our means, and I don't think that means never spending more money than you do today. I think that means spending money smartly going forward, and that would be changed every year during budget season. So one for one is absolutely where it has to be, in my opinion. And living within your means, as far as if there's something new, we need a new truck or something happens, that's something that would come before the board on a per case basis as it does today. And that's what I think living in your means is not going crazy with things, and I don't think that JR ever has that intention.
I'm gonna tell you,
from
this
what
guy
I've
right
seen.
here is never going to bring you a package in here that I don't think is fair for a taxpayer. I'll tell you that right now, because I am a
Right.
taxpayer in this county. I'm not
So-
gonna bring you something that I wouldn't do myself, or that I think was totally out there in far left field. I'm just looking out for the betterment of the people that we have to serve every
Yeah,
single day.
I think we're saying close to the same thing, is the wording we're using kind of makes it
Right.
sound a little.
Mr. Pickens?
Yeah, I think we pretty much all agree on the $1 for one, and that we definitely need to live within our means. But will this survey, will it give you, I guess, levels of funding? If you did this, it'll give you this much?
Yes,
And then
absolutely.
you'll be able to come in and say, okay, with each year, we go here, here, and here?
Correct. You bring them in, you could tell them today that your budget's got to be X, and then they're going to tell you this is what it would cost to get you there. And then, you know, we could adjust it up and down, you know, wherever it needs to be for particular capital improvement projects, or if you had a great need. And like I said, it could come down. I mean, if you get a bunch of people in and you don't have any more demand for service, the numbers can come down. But I mean, we got to get started somewhere. And I just don't want to hit that train wreck 3 years down the road and have to lay staff off because we didn't do our forethought and making sure, because I don't know where we're going to cut a truck out today in order to protect our citizens. I really don't have that answer for you.
How hard is that mechanism to raise or lower once it's in place?
It's up to you guys. You guys are going to set the rate every single
Do it.
year. It's going to come before you folks.
Okay.
Yeah, we do it in our budgeting season.
Okay.
Mr. Turner?
I'm next.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good deal. As I said earlier, I'm willing to move forward and take a look at this. I'm not willing to just turn it over to you and staff without any further bringing it back to the board.
Okay.
I'd like to hear it again. I'm on board with the presentation. I'm on board with the concept. As long as certain criteria is met. Like I said, my biggest thing is if we take away the 1.1 and then we reduce the millage rate to offset whatever the fire rate's gonna cost, at least that's gonna probably get me on board. But, you know, that's, the problem with that is there's nothing to say that next year's commission or 2 years down the road isn't gonna double the MSBU fire deal. All it takes is one vote. And so right now, they got to go through the whole process of public scrutiny and transparency and everything else, where later on, it's a matter of one vote. And you just change the name you just change the number that year. So, you know, I think what we're all losing sight of right now, and it'll come to an end or slow way down, but right now, property appraisals are going up, way up. I don't know how much they are because of the 3% deal on residential, but there's a lot of properties in the county that are gonna go up if, that aren't covered by the 3% homestead. So if that's the case, then we're gonna have a broadening of the tax base just like we've had in the last 2 years. And we haven't been able to take the entire rollback the last 2 years, and I really don't expect to be able to this year. But I do expect it to be more money than it was last year or the year before last year, and then this year again, another increase. We've had projects come online within the last year that weren't here last year. I just think that there's gonna be a pretty substantial increase in the tax revenues that we're gonna get. It may not be that we need to go through a MSBU, don't know, but I'm not saying that I'm not gonna ultimately support it, but you just haven't got me yet, JR. I'm gonna have to figure out where we're not just trying to raise additional monies from the citizens because we can.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ross?
I think what would be beneficial, at least for me, would be when you come in to talk to us in a couple of weeks about your budget, to lay out the vision. You know, we went through a visiting session. We're trying to get a strategic plan compiled and out. But this needs to be a large part of it. And I think that what we're missing as a commission is, you know, at the beginning, when the Citizens Committee came out, they said, you know, we've identified $8.8 million of necessity over about a 10-year period of time. Well, we're now at the end of year one coming up, actually beyond year one, basically. And so if the goal is to get to 8.8 million, then we have to start taking baby steps. Where are you right now with 1.1 mil?
A little over 4.
Okay. So let's just say, for conversational purposes, you're at half of what you might need. Then I think it would be beneficial to us to hear next year, 2023, 2024, 2025, where your goals are. So then, because we really have to budget for that, and that's a tool that we can use as a commission to get you where you need to be. And then if you could also show in the advantage to the taxpayers, you know, I'll be honest with you, I would hate to work for a fire service where I knew that I was going to have to put a truck in gear, grab a hose and run in and hope somebody's going to come up and pump that panel, or grab the dumb end of the fire hose and run in by myself, knowing somebody's on the panel with 2,000 gallons of water, and I hope somebody shows up from another station and doesn't hit traffic and get slowed down, or doesn't bump into somebody like happened on a rescue call that I went on one time, where you hit somebody at an intersection. You don't know what's going to happen, and we're putting people at risk and asking them to go way above and beyond with a two-man engine and not having somebody guaranteed to back them up.
Okay. I think you're going to bring that, Mr. Adams, that last word, and then I'm going to.
Yeah, I think we just let him go do his thing, and figure it out. I guess I like the idea of capping what he could do so they can move it forward quicker. But my question was more, when do we have to decide this by? Is it something that goes to, if we went to an MSBU, is it something that we just decide as a commission and it happens? Is it, I guess I am asking Mr. Suggs, from a budgeting standpoint, is there a reason to do it sooner than later? Would it be very disruptive to your budget process if we did it in July? Obviously, I mean, what are the other things outside of the idea that we want fire and rescue to be right from an administrative standpoint that we need to be thinking about too? Because we have fire that we need to be considering here too from a staff perspective. We don't want to make it so we're scrambling either.
Well, I appreciate that, absolutely. I think the biggest thing that we need to be mindful of is, I think Public Safety Director Grimes has laid it out, that he's looking at this for what we need to be looking for in 2, 3, 4 years down the road, which is very critical to us. It's not going to, listen, I would not sit here and think that we're going to be able to do a study, get in front of the board, educate the folks that we need to educate, and get it implemented for this fiscal year. In a perfect world, that'd be great, but we're not going to make that. So I think you're looking at next year at the earliest, but if we don't start the process now, or we can actually have some good conversations with the 5 elected officials and an education campaign for what it would mean for the citizens and the business owners of Putnam County, that's where we're going to miss the opportunity of what we need to do. So At the earliest, I would say this would be implemented if it was voted in by the commission sometime next year, to where we would be able to budget for that moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Okay. I want to close the
Real
comments out.
quick, if I could, do we have an opportunity now also to sell this to the public as we go forward? We have time before the end of the budget year to help educate. Again, this really what it's about is educating the public on the advantages of this. I don't see any downside to it, to be honest with you.
Well,
I see
okay,
lots of potential downsides.
yeah, I do too. Let me say this. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not, if it, dollar for dollar, I like that idea. I do think that everything we do has intended and unintended consequences. And it might be intended that we start seeing a reduction in insurance costs for the whole county, and people celebrate that in certain areas on homes. And Commissioner Rawls was right, you benefit from that. So when you look at a dollar for dollar, you might actually gain, some homeowners might gain 25 to 1. I don't know the answer to that. But there are unintended consequences, and when we start putting more fees on top of vacant lands in some areas, we might start inheriting some of that. And then we're going to put it back out for bid. So I think we just need to go forward, bring us prices back, and then we'll have that discussion as we go through this process. But there's always unintended consequences to every action we take as a board. Thank you.
And I don't mind that. I just want to know as many of those consequences I can find out before we just get ran over by a train.
The best thing we got going on is we're not the only ones that ever thought about doing it. We're not building the nuclear bomb. It's already been done. We can find out what those unintended consequences are. All right, JR, you got your marching orders? Yes, sir. Good. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. we're going to reconvene our meeting. We do have a topic that we're going to add to our workshop before Colonel Wells. Sam, would you like to come up and kind of give us a, and this is a time that's not funny, was it, Sam? Okay. He knew that he wasn't jumping up. This is a time-sensitive issue, so go ahead, Sam.
Good afternoon. Sam Sullivan, Grants, Projects and Legislative Affairs for Putnam County. I want to address to you an issue regarding grants that we received back in 2003 and 2004 from the FTA, the Federal Transit. 2003, 2004, yes, about 18, almost 20 years ago. And this was...
A little closer, Sam, I can't hear you.
Sorry, sir. That better?
Yes.
Okay. This money was to buy parts and chassis and equipment for the buses. They built the Bevy bus with it that's currently providing transportation around the county. We were contacted recently from one of their attorneys up in D.C. regarding the remaining 6,000 some parts that were purchased with that grant, and they want grant closure, and they want us to dispose of the parts. Be in contact with Mr. Thompson over with the right solution, and he has expressed a desire that if possible he could hold on to those parts. What the FTA has asked us is that we find another recipient, collect all those parts, and transport them into the custody of a new recipient. However, we went and looked at the possibilities of disposition that the FTA provides in their circular, and we have an option for any part that is worth less than $5,000 to retain it, and as well, the second part is anything over $5,000 we could retain, provided we pay a portion depending on what they decide they would want us to pay. There are only two pieces of equipment, and I can't remember the exact name of those pieces of equipment right now, but they're transmission related, that are in excess of $5,000. Mr. Thompson got an estimate on their value to be around $6,100. What we'd like your permission to do is to explore with the FTA about keeping this equipment, which might cost us as much as close to $13,000. We don't have an amount yet. We would come back to you with an amount, but first we want guidance. Do we want to just go with what the FTA is asking us to do, and that's find all this equipment, find a new recipient and get it to them, or go with what the right solution would like us to do, is hold on to this equipment and find a solution with that with the FTA, which might cost us a few $1,000s.
Sam, let me ask a question real quick.
Yes, sir.
So the bottom line here is that there's some equipment that we might have to pay $13,000 for to buy it away from the grant, correct? And then we could donate it to Ride Solutions at that point if we did that?
Yes, it's already in their possession, actually.
And all the other parts, we could just donate those to Ride
Actually,
Solutions?
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Turner, you had your light on?
Okay, so, if I'm understanding correctly, what you're saying, what was the amount of the total amount, the parts that are out there?
I'm going to give you a rough figure. I don't have the exact, around $500,000.
Okay, so we can keep $500,000 worth of parts for $13,000?
Or less, yes.
Why couldn't we transfer them to our own inventory over there at the
Fleet maintenance.
fleet maintenance? Thank you, Commissioner. Fleet maintenance, and then we wouldn't have to pay any money if we transferred them to fleet maintenance, would we?
Yes,
Would.
because we would still be responsible for those two pieces of equipment that would be over $5,000. That's part of our grant agreement from 2003.
So what are they saying we do to them if we don't want to pay for them? We give them back to them because they don't want them back?
No, they don't want them back, but part of our grant agreement, and this could affect future grants opportunities for the county if we don't follow through with our agreement, is there's different ways of disposal of these remaining parts. What they have asked us to do is one of the solutions, which is to find another recipient, accumulate that equipment, and give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
But we went and did our research and looked into the agreement, and we found that we could keep it, and we're looking for guidance whether we want to pursue keeping the equipment or giving it to a new recipient and finding a new recipient.
Well, but Ride Solutions wants the equipment, right? And that's
That
who
is-
they
that is
got the
correct, sir.
original grant was for equipment for Ride Solutions,
That's
correct?
correct, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, this commissioner just says they need to go on and try to retain the parts.
Mr. Pickens?
Did you say I'm on the Ride Solutions board, and I understand a little bit about the Bevy bus. I guess it really never got off the ground here. Is that what those parts were for? Is that what you're saying?
He's using it for other fleet fleet as well. He's using these parts to keep the buses operational.
Okay, so it does have value. It's not the,
Yes, sir. This has value.
Okay.
I have a letter from Mr. Thompson that I can share with the board.
okay.
Mr. Ross?
So I'm familiar with a lot of what you're talking about as far as the parts, because we share common property line. I've been looking at stuff for a long time. I would think it'd be in our best interest to pay the $13,000. Ask Boyd that if he does sell anything or in the stuff, then pay us back up to $13,000 in the future. Otherwise, let him keep everything, not physically move it. You'll spend more than $13,000 moving the stuff, to be honest with you. And
Okay, so
I'll put that in the
let me
form of
ask you
motion.
this. So Boyd Ride Solutions could be that recipient, and we would comply with the grant.
We
No,
become the
they're the
recipient.
current recipient. They actually
would
want us
be.
to find another authority, another transit authority in another location is what they're wanting us to do. Handing it to the Ride Solution would not solve.
If we
their
pay the
option.
We can't give,
13,000,
we
we're
can't
done.
give them to our ride authority, but we can give them to somebody else's ride authority?
That is our understanding,
But
yes,
if
sir.
we pay the 13,000, they
That's
can
the
keep
government.
everything. We don't, it all goes away.
That's
It's a
correct.
$13,000.
Okay, that's the $1 million question.
Right.
We pay the 13 grand, we keep $900,000 worth of parts, whatever that number was.
$500,000.
And we can do whatever we want to do with them. Well, it's a no-brainer.
Right, but we did,
Yeah.
but I wanted to make
Move
sure
forward,
before
but
we
you need
made
a
that offer.
motion. I
We do.
move that we move forward with the
Second.
best deal you can come up with, Sam, not to exceed 13 grand.
Second.
Sir.
Well, let's, wait a second now, because there's sometimes we say 13 and it's 13.5 or 14. Let's do something, because we really,
Is it more than 13?
I don't foresee it being so.
Less than 14?
It's based on the estimates of the equipment provided by Mr. Thompson.
Then
Yes,
let's
it
less
should be
than
under
14.
14.
Well, okay, I'll leave my motion at 13, not to exceed 13. And if they need a little more, all they got to do is go ask the administrator for a little more if they need it. I mean, he's got a $25,000 signature authority.
the problem is the audit. What we're finding out is in these motions, we can't go over what we say in the motion. He can't have the authority to go over that based on the audit.
Can if
because
we
there-
give him the authority.
That's what I'm saying. So right now, let's go ahead and say not to exceed 14 and we're done with this.
Okay, I'm good, 14.
Second.
As long as you don't want me to like not get a paycheck this week. 14, my motion's changed 14, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have proper motion of 14, not to exceed over 14,000, proper second by Commissioner Rawls. Any further discussion on this matter? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, the ayes have it. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you for your
You got it
time.
in our record, okay?
Y'all had the authority just to take care of
Yeah,
this.
but the audits.
Well, even 13 grand, I'm tearing
I know,
that done.
I know.
Yeah, okay.
All right, now, Commissioner Rawls, and Colonel Wells, I think y'all had a topic you wanted to discuss. Who's taking it?
5 minutes. We shut down at
Um,
4.
I'll get it started. So, in talking with Colonel Wells recently about a traffic infraction that was witnessed by camera. I don't know if you guys are all aware of the guy that took the joyride on 100 and he almost hit a school bus. So we were talking about that, and then got in the discussion about, why is it that, over here in this particular part of Palatka, we have so many off-road vehicles driving on-road, and started talking about traffic issues, and he said, well, we only have 9 patrol deputies and 2 sergeants on any given shift, and they're all covering 70-plus acres, or square miles of county limits. So it starts making you wonder, how do we really accomplish policing and law enforcement and public safety? Because, they're responsible for law enforcement, we're responsible for public safety, and it seems to me like, and I'm only looking at, and where I live, but traffic has picked up dramatically in town here. The instances of these side-by-sides and four-wheelers and dirt bikes going up and down the streets are every single day. I mean, I'm right here watching go across Westover in the middle of the daytime and shoot
Hey,
across.
Jeff, what time is it? What are you wanting?
Oh, it's
So,
4
I mean,
o'clock.
what are you wanting?
No, I think it's important for us to be able to hear. It was a little bit of an eye opener for me when I realized that we have long response times for anybody that's in critical need for law enforcement. From what he's saying, if they witness some sort of egregious act on the road, they'll pull the people over. Otherwise, we don't really have any traffic patrol because they don't have the ability to
I
to
get
do
all that. Again, what are you wanting? What is your ultimate goal? More men? Was that what you're asking for?
I think we should need to hear from the sheriff's
More
department. and-
deputies? You're
I
kidding.
I think at the end of the day, it's gonna come down to that.
Well, and if you, Mr. Chairman, just let me expand a little bit. Over the last, especially few months, I've heard from a lot of the commissioners, and I enjoy working with the commissioners over these issues. And most of them are increasing call volume and quality of life issues that are coming to light. And so the commissioners will communicate with us about concerns. And then during this conversation with Mr. Rawls and one with other commissioners, the question has come up, what are we doing about traffic enforcement? I'm hearing that your response times are long. And so it's just developed into a conversation after which Mr. Rawls thought that this was information that might benefit. It's totally up to you how far you want me to go with this. If you have any questions, the presentation is 2 slides. But it's not a ask for more
This is
men at
one
this
of 'em?
point. Yeah.
Is this
What's
one
that?
of them?
Yeah. It's not an ask for men at this point. It was to answer some questions that were had. So we can proceed if you think there's benefit for it, or we can at your discretion. Okay.
Tell me you're not hot.
Damn, it's getting
Freezing in here.
barbecue meat in here.
Right.
I thought you were gonna say you could barbecue me in here.
So
Fat enough to barbecue.
most of the conversations that I've had with commissioners is about those quality of life issues, traffic enforcement, speeding, and they were brought to a head after the man was caught on video on 100 passing the buses running off the road. That subject has been identified and charged with that. I expect his court appearance to be pretty soon, and we'll have some more information on that shortly. But then it evolved into some response times, and so I'm just doing the best I can to answer the questions I think Mr. Rawls had. So this is one of the things he asked me for. This is the current zone map of the county. When the shifts are full, each one of those zones contains 1 deputy sheriff. And then the county is divided in half at State Road 19 west and then State Road 19 to the east, and each one of those is covered by a sergeant. So that's your basic patrol coverage. The Eastern District is now 6 with the Crescent City when those additions are full, so 6 and a sergeant, and the Western District is 4 and a sergeant. That would be your total coverages. Generally speaking, during peak times of the day, there may be crime suppression units, canine units and stuff like that on the scene, making some additional headway there. Most of those units are vacant at this time, just filling holes in the patrol zones. So the question was asked to me about traffic enforcement. There is no dedicated traffic enforcement unit to the Sheriff's Office. The previous administration abolished the traffic enforcement units, the motorcycles and stuff along those lines, and that has just been something that we haven't had the ability to bring back at this point. So our deputy sheriffs do enforce traffic. I get that question all the time. How many tickets do you write? And they do, but that is something that's done in between their calls for service and in between their travel times. So, I kind of thought maybe what was going to happen here today, there was some specific questions, but we can go ahead and then look at the one additional. This is, and I know it's hard to read on my screen, so it's got to be on yours too. It looks a little smaller than it is really, but this is your current Department of Law Enforcement lineup, and it shows who's assigned to what district and who's assigned to what units and where current vacancies exist. And then with the additional positions, the 5 positions for Crescent City. So, all shifts are short at this time. All shifts are operating with empty zones, and all canines and crime suppression units have been put back on shifts to just cover the calls for service. And there's vacancies in our Criminal Investigations Bureau and our Drug Vice Unit due to shortages just to manage the calls for service. I'm happy to tell you that, well, calls for service themselves are skyrocketing, but it's more quality of life stuff. It's traffic control issues, it's loud parties, shooting in areas, fireworks, that type of stuff. FDLE hasn't released their final numbers yet, but we're very confident in our estimates that crime in 2020 reduced by another 9.5% in the unincorporated parts of the counties. But what we're seeing is the call volume itself go up, mostly traffic, compounded by the lack of the Florida Highway Patrol presence in the county, and traffic crash volumes are skyrocketing. And we try to we have an agreement with the Highway Patrol to work traffic crashes. This is a question that's come up on county roads, not on private property, so we handle the parking lots. However, they're only handling 1 out of 7 right now because we're not going to leave a citizen sitting on the side of the road for 2 hours for a trooper to get from Ponte Vedra. So we're handling about a good majority of our traffic crashes just because we're not going to wait or make the Highway Patrol drive or make citizens sit on the side of the road or in the road for that fact. So that's kind of how policing looks inside in the county, what the zones are, how many people are on duty. You've got the listing of how many detectives that we have allowances for, and then how many detectives are actually in place and where those holes are. So I was just opening up the door to let you guys see kind of how the law enforcement works, and be happy to answer any questions that you have. But this is not a specific request or anything. We haven't finished our budget per questions or our request for that for this year, or even know that even requesting additional manpower would be the issue, because right now we're unable to keep the current allotted spots filled. So this isn't a request for anything. This was a response for information, and if there's anything else that you might have or questions, comments, I'll be happy to address them.
Mr. Adams,
So, and this came up in our forum, I guess, our thing in Crescent City the other week. We rank near the bottom, and believe it or not, this is a health issue as well, right? Not having enforcement and the accident levels that we have, the number of accidents that we have where there's deaths, DUIs, accidents as a result of them. I had the opportunity to work with some U of F doctors as well as some statisticians for about 4 weeks earlier in this year before I ran into all the problems with my health and my wife's health, and then I had to stop doing it. But one of the things we did do was we took our ranking statewide, and we were able to take some of these younger children that died in accidents and things like that, and just eliminating some of the deaths and accidents and stuff brings our health rating up, and the one example up from 66 to 55th. And if we get rid of, it was only getting rid of like 5 or 6 of them, because it brings your average age of death or accidental death up. There's a lot of this plays into more than just what we see as far as writing tickets and someone gets upset because they have to pay a $250 fine. It does go into public health, public safety, and other areas. So I'm one of the first people that's probably going to get a ticket if we start doing more enforcement, because I fly around here like an idiot sometimes. I know my daughter's going to get more, but I think it's something we have to pursue. How that looks, I have no idea. But I got to see the numbers firsthand, just what our accidents and public safety things on the roads would do to even our health rating in the county. So
we have increased, as you see in the media, we've increased dramatically on our fatalities over the last few years. And, I think we're beyond the point of being able to lay that blame at the foot of the Highway Patrol any longer. I think the sheriff bears some responsibility there. We're going to have to address it. And we're on track for this to be another record-setting fatality year. But, and it's just, and maybe it's good if the citizens are watching, because we hear a lot of this, what are your deputies doing? I mean, I haven't seen a deputy on 100 in the area of Barden and, for long periods of time. Well, that's because that same deputy may be in Melrose, or he has those areas to handle, and we certainly want to do everything we can with it. But again, I don't know that additional manpower is the answer this year. I think in the future we're definitely going to have to address that. I think the answer for at least the immediate future is maintaining what we have. With the vacancies that we have empty now, quick projections is that just to replace those deputy sheriffs, the cost of retraining and the vacancies is going to be about $600,000 just for the vacancies that you see on the road right this minute, not for the vacancies that have occurred over the last 3 years. We had a very stable year, or maybe almost 2 years, in our Department of Law Enforcement, but a couple things in our surrounding counties have happened. Obviously their growth, but also the sunset of the Guardian program in St. Johns County, where they no longer use guardians. They have deputy sheriffs in every school and charter school, and so naturally they're drawing the resources to those counties. So Just seems to me the more reasonable thing to do. While I'd like to consider additional deputies, I think the more reasonable thing to do is just continue to work along the lines we have with the cooperation of the commission and try to maintain what we have. So, but I have no specific request. That wasn't the point of
Mr.
the
Ross.
presentation.
What does it cost per deputy to train a deputy when you have somebody quit and the other day you said you're riding 2 people in a car for an extended period of time?
With all the factors that we can come up with, we estimate that'd be about $34,000 after the hire and to equip. Now, obviously, not all the equipment's brand new. They get the same car that the one left, but bulletproof vests have to be redone and uniforms. But most of that's the training and the downtime, because once we get the deputy sheriff out of the academy, they still have, if they have no experience, they still have roughly 6 months before they can work a zone on their own. So that's 2 deputy sheriffs in a car, so you're double paying that. So we estimate that to be about $34,000 for loss. The bigger issue is, and like you know, I mean, it takes someone to turn in a 2-week notice, and then I'm 6 months before that's replaced. And we're just at critical nature on that right now due to a couple retirements and significant departures over the last 90 days.
And what, so, but as someone in private business, it seems to me like you have a choice. You can pay and let me ask this, how many people have you rolled in the past 365 days? How many people have come and gone?
From the agency?
Yes.
That I couldn't give you accurate on. I could tell you that it's in the last 365 days, and on the law enforcement side, probably 20.
That's $700,000 in training.
St. John's' last 2 hiring class had at least 4 or 5 apiece in each of their 2 hiring classes from Putnam County.
So you're expending this additional $700,000. Would it not make sense to do something to incentivize folks to stay here? Is it because there's no housing here and they don't want to live here, because the work conditions are terrible or the pay's terrible? What can be done to?
We're trying a lot of things to incentivize our folks to stay. You know, one of the things is, you know, it's not always about money. I mean, we're working through lots of things now with changing the culture of the agency. You know, giving our deputies a sense of ownership and entitlement to it. All of our matter of fact, I'm late to it now, but this is more important. All of our leadership is engaged in a 24-week extensive leadership class to learn how to be inspirational, motivational leaders. Deputy advisory committees taking in the requests that they have, like the new uniform changes and some other things that put into place. All of that we're trying, but a lot of it does. And again, this isn't a request, but a lot of it does. It comes into money, you know. But our deputies are reasonable. They're smart young men and women, and they realize that Putnam County cannot compete with the tax base of St. Johns County. Some men and women that want to be law enforcement officers realize they're not cut out for rural law enforcement. They're not cut out for the fact that they're not going to have backup for 14 or 15 minutes. That they're on their own for that much time. Some are. So we do get some out of the academy and then realize that how much they're on their own and what their response times for their backup are, it's not for them. But a lot of them thrive in that atmosphere. I would much rather work those larger zones than the smaller ones, me personally. So we're seeing a lot of that. You know, it just depends on a lot of things. We do exit interviews, anonymous exit interviews with our folks that are leaving. And about 85% of the anonymous exit interviews are either base salary and less expensive insurance is the basic part of it. Now, our employee insurance is great. You can't beat that for the basic. It doesn't cost us anything, but the family insurance hits some of our guys. So, you know, but it's one of those things. We're not going to be able to compete with St. Johns County. What happened in Putnam County, and all of y'all know this, especially Mr. Pickens, we've had this conversation a million times, is the lack of forward progress within the sheriff's office for so many years set us behind. So while this commission and this sheriff have worked phenomenally together and we've taken strides every year, we just can't get that caught up done. So, you know, it's just one of those things we're going to have to deal with. You know, we may have to get used to this being more of a military type service in a career where we hope to get 4 years out of somebody and then they move on. Because, you know, our average deputy sheriff on the road has got right at about 3 to 5 years right now. I'd have to refigure it after this recent law. So, you know, I don't know the answers to that, but certainly we're working toward that every day. And, you know, we'll certainly have additional information for you and as we come in with the budget request and just keep doing what we can do. It's certainly unfortunate. Less people are going to the academies. Academies that used to graduate 60 people are graduating 15 people. And when you see the counties competing against that, it just gets hard for us to compete sometimes. But, you know, it's nothing that everybody else in the county, Public Works, Fire and Rescue, that everybody else isn't dealing with. So we're certainly not saying that.
Mr. Adams?
So, I mean, nationally, this is a problem too. It's not just in Putnam County. And there's a difference between someone that's qualified and someone that's acceptable for a force as well. I mean, you guys do interviews for a reason. I guess when I go around the county, I see these other sheriff's department from other county cars. You know, down near where I live, there's a few that work in Marion, and they bring their cars home. In East Plaque, I know there's at least 4 that go to St. John's, because when I campaigned, I knocked on their doors. Down in Crescent City, there's some from Volusia and other areas. Is there any way that we could do a targeted, and maybe a suggestion to the sheriffs, and you know probably why them guys left. They live here. They really probably maybe didn't want to leave, but those are the ones that left because, hey, I can live here cheaper and I make more money right across the border, and I just come, and that's good that we have people that are bringing the money from the other counties back. But is there a way we could do a targeted recruitment and on those type people, that if we found a financial way, maybe bonuses, or I don't know, some way to get them back in the fold here? They're already trained. We already trained them for the most part. I don't know. What are the thoughts on that? I mean, what are the ideas you guys are kicking around? You have to.
Well, we obviously actively recruit at every opportunity. And I will tell you, Mr. Adams, that we don't have problem finding applicants. These empty positions that y'all can see on that next slide, if you look down below it, all those are trainees and applicants that are waiting to fill those. It's the maintaining them.
Right.
It's the honeymoon phase when you get out of the academy. And we have lots of our deputy sheriffs instruct at the academy. When we hire people, generally the reason they tell us they came to Putnam County is because that instructor was so motivational and loved working here, and so they followed them here. But then the honeymoon phase goes away. They get a little bit older. They might get married, have some kids. And now when you're looking at starting salaries of $10,000, $12,000 a year higher, that makes an impact on that family. It's not the base starting salary isn't $10,000 or $12,000, but what the other counties are able to do is they take our guys at 5 or 6 years of service and they hire them as a St. John's deputy that started there that now has 5 or 6 years of service. So they place them in very high, and some of ours are leaving to start much higher. Again,
So I guess
just one of those challenges. And so we've, in the past, had worked really hard to target local, born and raised people with real attachment to Putnam County. And we've been able to hire them, and they've been some great people, and I can give you names of them. They still live in Putnam County, but they drive a St. John's
Right.
or a Alachua car.
Those are the guys I'm
Right.
referencing.
So they still do. But
So let me ask this: do we not have the opportunity, if we hire a 6-year guy from another county, to bring them in at a higher level than entry level? I mean, why aren't we pursuing that same? Granted, we may be a little bit less, but
so we could look at that, and we do have some incentives that come in. One of the things that we do is if one of our deputies left and they were in step 3 of the step pay plan and they come back to us, then we put them back in the step pay plan. We don't make them start back over because they were originally ours. And every once in a while we'll get one that leaves and comes back. So the problem is if you take a 6-year St. John's deputy, and I use them because there's the biggest disparity pay, but use a 6-year St. John's deputy and you bring them back in as a 6-year Putnam deputy, they just lost a bunch of money. So if I bring them in at their same salary they were making 6 years at St. John's, they're making what a 15-year guy here makes. You know, so it's just, you can't really do that to our folks that have remained with us through the tough times and are doing the best thing we can. But we do offer some incentive to try to hire experience. And from time to time, we are starting to see more. They're like, hey, you know, I don't want to be in this area anymore. And believe it or not, a few out of South Florida are starting to migrate this way just a little bit. So we do, and we do offer them the most incentive we're able to, because they are easier to train.
what about recruiting from like colleges and stuff in other states that offer full criminal justice?
We have not engaged in recruiting outside of the state of Florida. We do recruit through all the academies in this area and the colleges that offer the degrees. We're also members of multiple improvement or recruiting programs through the military. One specifically is Army Pays. We're a preferred employer by the U.S. Army. So upon exit from the Army, anybody that says they want to go into law enforcement, they give them a list of preferred employers. We're on it. We recruit heavily at Naval Air Station Jacksonville and Mayport, and because a lot of the guys from the Navy stay once they get into this area of Florida. So, you know, we do heavily recruit. Military veterans are historically very successful law enforcement officers and great employees.
And
so we do target our military pretty hard.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Turner?
Okay. I appreciate the conversation, Colonel, but it's the same conversation we have since before I was even a commissioner.
Yes, sir.
Same problem, same deal. We don't pay as much as St. John's. We'll never pay as much as St. John's. We don't have the tax base. You know, it goes back to the deal to where you haven't even, I don't know that in the last 3 years you've filled all the positions you have available a single time, have you?
We had law enforcement filled for about 18 months, believe it or not, and we're turning applicants down. But, you know, it goes through cycles.
Yeah. So anyhow, I think this is something that's going to happen from now on, and we just can't compete against St. Johns County. We have to do other things. And I know that y'all are trying hard. I know it was a big step when you gave them a 14 or 17% pay hike a year and a half ago or 2 years ago or whenever it was. I get it. It was necessary. But we can't catch up. We can't go any better. I don't know how we're going to get there. I know that Bobby Payne's tried his best to get Florida Highway Patrol to spend more time in Putnam County. He has not been successful yet, or not that I've seen, even though I did see one the other day for the first time, and I don't know when.
Yes, sir.
I don't really know what the answer to all this is. I really don't, but I don't see where we can spend. You know, if you look back over the last 3 years, we've given the Sheriff's Department over $5 million in the last 3 years over what their bid budget was just 5 years ago. So it's not like we haven't been striving to fund the Sheriff's Department or to do the things that need to be done, but it's not the only thing we got going on in Putnam County. So anyhow, I just wanted to.
No argument on any of your points. Certainly, we're not trying to compete with St. Johns County, and we're certainly making no argument that the commission hasn't been great to us. It was an opportunity to have some open conversation back and forth that we can't have, you know, with all of you at one time. And if you have any specific questions at one at a time, we'll be certainly happy to.
Only thing I want you to do is remember that commitment you made last year about your budget increases this coming year.
But you know, I think
the commitment that I have on tape, that I'm going to show it up there when you ask for something, say, no more taxes, no more taxes, no more taxes. I'm going to blink that over and over and over on.
And I certainly don't want any additional taxes either, but I can tell you situations change a lot between year to year, and I don't know what it's going to look like this year, but that's not up to me. That's up to the sheriff to bring that in here. I can certainly give him projections and recommendations on where we need to be. But the simple fact of the matter is,
hey, Joe, I'm smiling when I said that, okay? Easy,
I know.
Easy killer.
I know,
Okay,
but
Commissioner, we're gonna
again,
wrap this up.
appreciate the
Commissioner
time. If you
Ross.
have anything, let me know.
Hang on.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Rawls, real quick.
So FHP does not have a presence in Putnam County, and it's frustratingly obvious to people. So security office doesn't have a presence here. We don't have child support enforcement here. And eventually you start getting the feeling that there's something wrong with this, and there's really not. But we don't rise to the occasion of having these services, and I think from a citizen's perspective, they're pretty frustrated. My heart goes out to you guys. You're in a tough situation. You're spending $700,000 to $800,000 having to retrain people, and so we're expending the money.
Right.
And I'm just wondering if there was a way to reroute that money, if you couldn't stop the bleed, and then eventually be able to, what's it cost to put a deputy on the road?
I've been in this position for 4.5 years, and had some very idealistic goals and dreams about being able to maintain a staff for a long time, and we had some very successful years. I can tell you that we're now in that very successful period in the Department of Corrections. This used to be the jail. Now the jail's full, and
full of workers.
Full of deputy sheriffs.
Yeah.
It's max.
Okay.
We have all our positions filled in the jail. So, it's just now the jail's being very successful, and law enforcement is certainly taking a beating. We're going to deal with this until I retire in Putnam County, because we know that catching up with St. Johns County is not even the goal. I think that obviously the goal is to every year do the best we can by the deputies. I think that it may be a realistic goal, and this is just something I'll share with you. This is not anything with what we're asking for the budget, because I don't know what the sheriff's going to do with that. But I'll tell you, on 2 of our exit interviews, 2 of our deputy sheriffs that left said, I'm not naive. One of them said I'm not stupid. I'm not asking you to pay me what St. Johns County pays, but I certainly expect you to pay me what a Putnam County paramedic makes. So that was the who we got on 2 exit interviews.
Wow.
So just, you know, telling you it is somewhat about money. They're not expecting to make what St. Johns County makes. I'm not asking you that. I would never come in here and ask you that. I'm
Well,
not
I-
asking you anything today.
You know, and there, when I first got elected, I was shocked to find out that there have been no pay raises here in 10 years. And I tried to put myself in a position of a person that went to work every day for 10 years, knowing that the economy was getting more expensive to live in and having the same amount of money year over year over year to maintain their household. And I would imagine it's got to have a psychological, it has a psychological effect. There's no imagining about it. It puts stresses on the families, you know, as a husband, as a father. I've been in those positions as a business owner where you just don't want to face your wife and let her know how bad things really are because you know. You know, and as a commissioner, you get to see behind the curtain. And so, you know, I think the message that I would like the employees in the Sheriff's Department to understand is that this commissioner is 100% behind the Sheriff's Department. I am very proactive in trying to help you guys get the funding that you need, not necessarily that you want, but we've got a part of our requirement as commissioners is to provide public safety, and that's exactly what we're discussing right now. And if we're spending the money just trying to maintain the status quo, we're expending that $700,000, $800,000 in. If we could maybe take a look at increasing pay, increasing benefits, I don't know, offer incentives for housing, you know, if housing's an issue. I don't know what drives people to or from the Sheriff's Department, but I wouldn't want to be that person out there at 14 minutes by myself if you had a hostile person and had to face them by yourself. That would suck.
Well, I'm convinced that you're a supporter of the Sheriff's Office, but I'm also convinced that of all 5 and also our county administrator. They've all worked very closely with us, and I couldn't ask for anything better. I hope that we have all of y'all for a long time to stay behind our side. So again, certainly don't envy the position you're in. I know that Director Grimes has tremendous needs. I know Public Works. I know everybody. I'm not naive to that, and we're just going to continue to do the best we can, work together as a team.
But it pains me to hear that, you know, I hope the message that can be gotten out somehow is that, you know, it shocked me when you said a sheriff's deputy leaves and says, I hope, you know, y'all should be able to pay me as much as a paramedic. I agree. There's no doubt. I'm freaked out about this $15 an hour minimum wage. We just got our paramedics at $15 an hour. Well, then what's going to happen? You can hold a sign that says stop and go and get $15 an hour and no education. We got a perfect storm brewing.
Mr. Adams,
I'm sorry, sir.
So I think we all support the Sheriff's Department. I absolutely agree with that. I have an expectation, though. I have an expectation that the needs of the community are met, and I don't think they're being met. So I'm going to say that straight up. I don't think we're enforcing traffic violations. I don't think we're doing enough of that. So I need a solution. I need you guys to bring us some sort of solution, or we need to help you with a solution. We need to work together to find a solution. But there needs to be more enforcement of traffic violations. There needs to be more, you know, lowering of potential accident situations. There needs to be better response times to the, like you kind of said, the living type calls. You know, we can't have people, I get calls all the time. I called and no one ever called back. Most of them we found out were BS, but it was still 4 or 5 hours. I have that expectation, and we need to work with you to figure out how to meet that expectation. Maybe I'm alone in that, but that's what the people are telling me, and that's my expectations, that we all live up to what the people are asking for.
Yes, sir.
all right, Mr. Pickens, real quick.
Yeah, and Joe, I think you said it, as Paul did, we all support you, there's no question about that. The Sheriff's Department does all our other departments and our staff, Administrator Suggs, but it does take a lot of money, and we have funded more, but it's just have to work with it in steps, and hopefully you're just in a cycle where you said the jail is fully staffed and you're down a little bit, and hopefully that cycle will change. So, but we are 100% for y'all, and y'all, we've had this discussion many a times that y'all inherited a situation, but we also did too. So
Absolutely.
we're working the best we can to try to improve it.
Yeah, like I said, Arlington is a team, and certainly our daily, or at least weekly conversations with Ms. Young and Mr. Suggs, and we're always able to work out anything we have, and in the end of the day, we're all going to be friends and do the best we can to serve the people of Putnam
All
County,
right,
and I
and
appreciate the support.
last comment I have, since I've been quiet. We have, over the years, and I know the commitment you made publicly last year, we can make you whole. Maybe it wouldn't be that big of a increase this year. I know that was a looking into the future. We all look into the future, but it doesn't always work out that way. But you did inherit a bad situation from previous administration, and we have made you as whole as we can over the years to get you up to a point. I do think it's a cycle. I think you're very much in a cycle. And we don't tell you what to pay your deputies. You pay them what you want to pay. We don't do that. We don't tell you what to pay the benefits. You all do that. We give you a lump sum of money and say, here it is, and do what you can do with it. So it's not really fair to say this deputy might not make the same as a paramedic. I don't know the numbers. I haven't run those numbers because you do better benefits in some areas than we do on our side of the fence. So with that, I think maybe things aren't so off. And let me just say this, and walking out of Muscle Lights today and the two guys, and I know they were jesting to me about, but it kind of hit hard to me. It kind of hit me where you need to fund your sheriff's department a little bit better. And so I came back and I did some numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a numbers guy. Putnam County spends $321.80 per citizen on law enforcement. St. Johns County spends $313.76, less than what Putnam County does. But you're right, we're rural and they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference there. They do have some rural pockets, but not as much as we do. And I agree with you. So I think that all in all, I think you and the sheriff do a remarkable job for what you've got, but I don't know how much more you can keep getting to make everything work the way, because if you take one deputy from patrol and put them doing traffic, then that stops that thing.
Yeah.
I mean, and the return, when you talk about the tickets, I remember you mentioned that to us years ago. You don't really get back that much on a ticket writing. Putnam County doesn't. So to dedicate a deputy to sit there and write tickets all day long, not saying they shouldn't,
Right.
based on that, but when you look at a return on investment, and that's at the bottom line, when we put pencil to paper, we're not going to get a whole lot of money back on a whole lot. Golly, where did I learn to talk? We're not going to get a whole lot of money back based on those. So it's not going to be you put a deputy out for 50 and he's going to be able to write 100,000 in tickets. Not going to work that way. So I think we're going to have to find at budget time, we're going to have to find a balance in what we can do.
Absolutely.
And we all know public safety is our primary charge by Florida statute. We all know that. And even if it wasn't, it's the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
So, Colonel, I thank you for
Let me close
coming.
with just one response to that, if you don't mind. First of all, I wanted to apologize about the commission, or about the comment that was
okay.
made that was the legal counsel for the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, who's over here, as we were sharing information on a case, and I had made a joke with him about, while he was walking around our sheriff's office, that he wasn't going to get out of my sight because I know what they'll do, and they make no bones about it. So I was going to leave him unbabysat because I didn't want him recruiting or talking to any of my folks. So then when I introduced you as the chairman, he made some side comment that I apologize for.
No, it was fine.
The point on the traffic enforcement, it is certainly, we are never going to make our money back financially off writing tickets.
Right.
We are not. That's not the point of it. Can we
Right.
put a dollar sign on somebody's life? And when our fatalities are high, and these neighborhood complaints are at all-time high, and the four-wheelers on the roads, and the speeding cars, and I mean, I came across the Memorial Bridge. I'm not saying we can stop everything. I came across Memorial Bridge today and noticed that at some point between the last time I drove over and today, somebody sat on the top of it and spun a total donut on top of the Memorial Bridge. So, it's not about the return on tickets. And, we worked together very well last year with some carryover money to help us with some capital needs, and then let some CARES money kind of fill in some other needs that it was applicable for to get where we need to get. And we'll do that every year.
Well, Colonel, thank you for coming, and really
Yes,
we
sir.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Please forgive me that we came back, and I like to hear those numbers, and I'm that kind of guy. So, but we appreciate you more than you know. And
Yes,
we
sir.
appreciate the sheriff, and
Alrighty.
we all truly love our sheriff's department here. So
Oh, I
thank
know.
you.
It's evident. Thank you guys so much
All
for your
right,
support.
good. Thank you. We're going to move this along. Okay, Commissioner comments. Mr. Adamczak, any?
No, I'm all set.
Mr. Turner?
Yes, sir, I have something.
Okay.
As we've identified problems throughout the year, we've tried to fix those problems, and it's been a 101 type employee problem where we're probably gonna lose somebody over that position is, they do a lot of training or certifications. Well, I've identified another one of them, and I wanna talk about it today, cause I don't believe we got any longer, or we're gonna lose this person. Mike Rodriguez. Mike Rodriguez is going to, I think he's gonna leave us if we don't do something, and we don't do it today. I think that, he's come up with multiple certifications and project manager certifications and things that he didn't have when he came here. And so he's way up the ladder from where he is. Not only that, he's fixing to sit for his PE. And so,
Color him gone.
huh?
Color him gone.
Well, maybe, but maybe not. You wanna just run his ass on off this afternoon? Go ahead. I'm telling you, we ought to
All
try
right,
to
Mr.
fix
Turner's
this.
got the floor, Mr. Turner.
I'm saying we got to try to fix this. That's what I'm saying. If we try to fix it and we still lose him, at least we tried. So I think we need to fix this. I think that, we need to raise him up to $62,000 a year. He sent an email requesting that amount, and he makes 50-something thousand now. It ain't like he's holding us up.
I think it's a gift.
You know, I say 60,000, 62, wasn't it, Terry, or Mr. Suggs?
I agree.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we, raise his salary to $62,000 a year, starting immediately.
I'll second that.
Under discussion, Mr. Adams.
I don't necessarily disagree with this idea, but we just said to the sheriff that we have people that grew up here and worked here and worked through their life to become deputies, and we're not making any attempt to keep them with raising their pay. To me, that seems like a fly in the face for the conversation we just had. No, it's just the timing of the conversation. It has nothing to do with whether I agree with the conversation or not, but it's completely the opposite argument that we just said to him, that don't ask for more
No, it's
people and
not.
ask more money.
Okay, hang on.
In my opinion, it is. I can have whatever opinion I want.
You can have your opinion.
So I'm all for it, but we can't do this and then tell them, everyone else, well, yeah, well, I think it sets a bad precedence personally. I don't know. For this particular talent person, I think it makes sense, but it's a bad precedence.
Okay, well,
Mr.
I don't
Turner,
think it's a bad precedence at all, and the reason why is because can't you see the difference between somebody going to school, getting an education, stepping himself up in certifications he didn't have when he got here? When the sheriff's department, you tell me it's a slap in their face. When they hire a deputy and then they promote him to corporal, do you think he makes the same amount of money?
Mr. Turner, calm down a little, just a little.
No, I'm just
I
serious here.
understand.
He said it's a slap in the face.
Well,
of the sheriff's department.
he didn't
It
mean
ain't
that
a
against.
slap in the face.
He didn't mean that against your.
It's all about Rodriguez is what it's about.
Okay.
That's what it's all about.
I-
It's all
we-
about Rodriguez.
We got it. Okay, good.
And and what he's done and the certifications he's made and the things that he's done to move his career forward. That's what it's all about. It's not about how much we pay somebody else.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Mr. Ross.
I've enjoyed working with Mike on Waterways and Trails. He's never uninformed. He's always been able to answer questions in a very quick and deliberate manner. I think he is what we need in Putnam County. I honestly think if you have a guy that's taking his PE exam and did he pass it? Does he have his PE?
Taking it yet, I don't think.
Yeah,
Fixing to sit for it.
if he's able to sit for his PE, I just hired a project manager that makes more than that. It makes more than 62,000. So I'm just putting that out there. So it's a gift. I agree with what Commissioner Adams says. But this is the things that we need to do. I know that their staff has been very anemic. I've been saying that we might need to take a look at reshuffling the deck at Public Works. It's up to Mr. Troxel to do. Eliminate some positions they can't fill anyways and bump people up in pay. I'm a proponent for getting our employees moved up, but I can guarantee you that I don't know any engineer that would work for $62,000 a year, and he's doing a terrific job. He's what we need in the county. If we can get him to commit and stay here, I think it's a gift.
Thank you. Now, both numbers. So who do you think, Mr. Pickens, did you see if you were next?
Yeah, let Paul go.
Mr. Adams, I'll let, go ahead, Mr. Adams.
So I'm not against the idea. It's just the point. I think people should be reimbursed for what they're worth and what their value is, but the precedences could get weird. Because then people just go try to get certifications and to educate themselves and just ask for a raise. I mean, he has shown that he has the skills to go beyond just what his certification is, from what I've interacted with him. I'm for this. I just am nervous that it's going to be used over and over again, and that's just not how things are done, in my opinion. And again, I'm a little bit disappointed that it's coming from the commission and not from staff, and I don't know why that is or whatever. I'm not just. I'd like to see it come the other way at some point. That
Thank you.
we're getting ahead of it and saying, hey, we have this guy that's really doing something for himself. What can we do for him in the future? Or he has these plans, whether that comes from HR or whatever, that we know what people are trying to do to better themselves, and it comes that way. You know, this is a long-term thing. This is not about Mike Rodriguez, but that's how we do it in business. Is we see how people are bettering themselves. And this, I understand government's not business, and then we look for opportunities either for them to move into or for us to move them up. So,
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. Pickens?
Yeah, government's not business, but, you know, you got to run it like a business a lot of times. You know, hopefully in the future with Mike Troxel being able to reorganize over there, that maybe he will do like Commissioner Rawl says, and we've discussed this, and maybe, okay, we're not going to be able to fill all these positions. Let's cut some of these out, and let's use that money to raise some of the people that we do have that are in positions that you know, leadership positions, so we can keep people, because what we want them to have is a career in Putnam County, and that seems to be you know, tough sometimes. Also, I would think that if he had a system in place that so if somebody did come in and they had Mike's credentials, and then a year later or 2 years later that Mike has these credentials, that he would move up to this, and it would be a given, some type of salary range, and maybe Mike's working on that. And also with the Sheriff's Department, you know, we funded him, and as they've said, we funded them well. It's up to him to make the decisions of how to pay his staff, unless I'm incorrect, that he makes the decisions of how to pay his staff, not us. So I'm in agreement, because I'd sure hate to lose Mike, because I think he's been very productive, and I don't know how many other engineers we have. You know, just one other one.
We have one, and I believe he's going to retire at the end of this year from the conversation I've heard.
Right, so we're going to lose one, so I'm okay with it. I'd just would like to see maybe a process in place to where we wouldn't be in this situation, that they would know what to raise him or that particular person when they made those certifications.
Mr. Turner?
In most instances, like I said, we've gone throughout the years it started. I could go back and name multiple ones that we've done this to over the years, where we just find something that's completely that's not the correct amount. It's just not the correct amount for that employee, for that amount of abilities, that amount of additional certifications or whatever. I mean, we did it for Sam Willis over in East Palaca, because the same exact thing. He had additional certifications. He knew what it, you know, just we did it. We did it not too long ago. We did it because we were going to make a new hire, and that new hire needed to be somebody that took on more responsibilities and had another level, and we recognized it had to do it, so we fixed that position. I don't care how hard you try. I don't care how hard you reshuffle every department. I don't care. You're going to find one of these as you go along that somebody that has just trained and educated themselves above the level that they're at, but we don't have something in the system necessarily to fix that exact one. So yeah, we can call him something else if that'll help. I don't care. Promote him, do whatever, but it's the same thing. He's going to be the same guy. He's just going to do these other things that he has the ability to do because he's been trained. He took it on himself to do it. Jeff's exactly, or Commissioner Rawls exactly right. You know, I'd try not to sit up here and say things like, I'd love to have him at 62
Well,
grand
that's
a
what,
year.
that's one through my mind is you're not going to hire him.
What I'm saying here, I mean, I don't want to say him, but I'm saying, you know, let's give the guy what he's asked for, and maybe that'll make him happy to move forward, and You know, and it'll be good for the county, so thank you.
Mr. Adams, that?
I guess I'm curious, like, how did it come about, this conversation? Like, who did he ask? Where did that's what it confuses me about all of this.
Right.
Well,
Did he come to Terry Turner and said, hey, I'd like to
You
get
want me
62
to
grand?
answer you, you want not me, or me not to answer
Sure.
you, then you got to let me answer you.
Thank you.
Okay. I've been working at Public Works at the direction of the county, and somebody told it to me, and it was not him.
Okay.
Good enough?
So do we know that that's enough to keep him? I mean,
I don't
if
know
we're going to
any-
do something like this,
don't
I
know
want it to be
anything. All
enough.
I know is that I saw a public email to the county administrator that basically said, I'd like to have 62,000. But that wasn't the first thing, that was the second thing when I went to him and asked him what to do about this. So I'd read it.
And how confident are
hours
we
ago, hour
that
ago, hour and a half
$62,000 is enough to retain him for more than 6 months?
I don't know, if it's not, I guess we can't
I
retain
mean,
him.
I would rather have Terry have the conversation with him and find out what keeps him here for 2 to 5 years. And
Mr. Chairman, if I might, let me step in if I can. I've had the conversation with Mr. Rodriguez. This conversation has been going for a couple, 3, 4 weeks. And what I asked Mr. Rodriguez to do, as well as Mr. Troxel, was to bring me back the documentation that would show the requirements that I would need to do to bring back to the board to do this for Mr. Rodriguez. I will tell you that unequivocally, it's absolutely worth every penny of $62,000. That was a conversation that Mr. Rodriguez and I had personally in my office, and that's why he sent me the documentation, the email, that said that this is what was his request. And so that's why we're having this conversation today. Mr. Turner happened to be privy to a conversation, Commissioner Turner, at Public Works, and so he picked up the ball and ran with it. I want to address your previous comments about why are they not coming from me. 2 meetings back about the planning and the building department, I had that conversation. I was out that week, as you know, recovering from a medical procedure, where I had asked those employees to bring back that documentation as well. They just had not gotten it back here. So I couldn't bring something to the Board of County Commissioners without having the analysis to back up the request. Okay? And as far as Mr. Tilton's position at the last meeting, Mr. Tilton and I have had this conversation as well prior to him coming in, and I asked him to put something together as well. So they would be coming from the county administrator. However, circumstances have not allowed that to happen in the last 2 of the 3 opportunities.
do we know from your conversations with him that 62,000 keeps him here for 2 to 3 years potentially? That there's a
Mr. Chairman, I can't answer that. All I can tell you is that I have a lot of faith and confidence in Mr. Rodriguez and his character as an individual. I do know that he's had an opportunity to explore other options, and his conversation with me in my office was about that. And Mr. Rodriguez has told me that this is where he would like to stay. This is where he sees his future. What I explained to him in the process of where he is now and the opportunities he has moving forward. And I think Mr. Rodriguez sees the value in that. So the answer to that question today is yes, but who knows what that answer will be tomorrow. But I've had that conversation, and given his character, I'll take Mr. Rodriguez at his word.
From our HR director, do we have a pay range for someone that has that PE and those things? Do we have the standard? Obviously, he doesn't have it yet, but we're assuming he's going to get it. I think he's a smart guy. I highly doubt he'll fail a test. So,
We do, and I don't have that with me. I have the pay range for the position he's currently in, and when he attains his PE, once and if he attains that PE, we'll look at the opportunities that may present itself to him. Right now, we have a person in that position, and upon vacancy of that position, we'll look at whatever we can do internally at that time. As you all know, the 5 of you know, I'm a huge proponent of internal promotion, so when the opportunity presents itself, we'll have that conversation then. But the direct answer to your question is yes, we do have a pay range.
and what is the pay range for his current position?
I believe it's 51 to 72? Yeah, current.
Well, you already said you didn't have that with you.
No,
Oh,
I
for
don't
his
have the
current,
one
he said he had.
for the PE position.
Okay.
The current position that he's in at this point is 45,205 to 72,113.
That's in your purview, yeah, so we don't. All right, Mr. Adams, are you done?
I'd like to see us offer him actually 65 personally, but that's just my opinion.
Mr. Rawls, you have the floor.
I would concur, because I think he's underselling himself, but I wrote a note, I think in the future, this stuff needs to come through the department head to Mr. Suggs. Per the employee policy, he has the authority to modify positions. He's done it before. I don't know that, this is something that really could be hung up a lot easier. And I think that my concern is the optics are, if we have an employee that deems himself to be in a critical position looking for a pay raise, they can send an email and, the commission and say, hey, I'm worth more money. I think we're getting on a slippery slope, but I concur. I think Mike deserves the money without a doubt.
I think we have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, I think that we really should take a look at letting this just go through the proper channels, through the department head, through Mr. Suggs, and then they can, if it's in the budget, we've already approved the budget. We've already told them they can spend the money. How they spend the money, same thing we just told the sheriff, how you spend your money is how you spend your money. So, but are you offering an amendment to the motion? Because I'll second that if you want to make an amendment.
I don't know if I can, I think.
No, you gotta,
Anybody can amend the motion.
you gotta approve.
I'd like to amend the motion to move it to 65,000 per year.
I'll second that.
You approve?
That gives you a range.
Yeah, you're fine.
Fine
All
with
right,
me.
I wanna, in sake of discussion, I wanna close this out real quick. I don't have a problem with, I think Mike Rodriguez is fine, but I do agree with the fact that it needs to come through the channels, and I appreciate Commissioner Turner's zeal and seeing, trying to keep somebody, and I do appreciate that. Do not get me wrong. But I think it's time, when we go into budget talks, to take the handcuffs off of our administration, take the handcuffs off department heads, and say, same thing we just told Colonel Wells, here's your pot of money, and deal with it the way you do, because it's sad to me
It's already been done.
that we're having this.
It's already been done.
It's sad to me that we're having this conversation at this level when it can be already done. So we have a proper motion, $65,000. We have a proper second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. Mr. Turner, you still have the floor. Is there anything else you'd like to comment on?
Is this public comment?
No, it's your
No,
commissioner
sir.
comment.
I think I took my time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much for letting me, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rawls.
I have 8 things, but I'll be brief. I'm done. I was joking.
I don't know if you could be brief on these topics, but I'm willing to watch that happen, okay?
Commissioner
goal is
Rawls
to get us
can't
to
be
5
brief if
o'clock.
he's describing an
teasing.
oil change.
Just teasing. Mr. Pickens, you have the floor, sir.
I'm good. Thank you.
And I'm good. Mr. Attorney, Commando, Rich?
Nothing to add, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Suggs, any comments?
No, sir, other than I believe Commissioner Wiles, I believe I heard someone say it from this seat before, may have gotten himself a quotable quote today. So, a quotable quote today, when you asked if we missed you on the other end of the dais.
I was going to say, we actually got a laugh out of Rich, too.
Absolutely. But no, sir, I have no further comments. Thank you.
All right, good deal. Is there any public comments on miscellaneous items? Anybody in the public would like to speak? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Remember, we have a 5:05